All right. Welcome to another live episode of the Black College Sports Network Game Time Edition. It's March Madness. We call it the BCSN. I don't even know what the hell did I name this thing. Tournament.
You put the graphic together, bro.
I know. I put the graphic together. Well, what threw me off right now is I'm dealing with a little issue here on X. The stream did not go out on X. It went out everywhere else for some reason. So now I'm sitting here trying to reconfigure some things here so I can get it to stream on X. Of course, those who may be watching us in a few other places, let me hit the button here and see if it goes out. Brian Fulford, 80 Drew, joining us is Charles Edmond. Of course, you can hear Charles every Saturday morning on the Carlos Brown Show, right here on the Black College Sports Network. And then, of course, Charles is the voice of Alcorn State Sports Radio. How you doing tonight, Charles?
Good evening from Atlanta. Ready to rock and roll.
Live from Atlanta, Georgia, where the 2025 SWAC championship, the starry SWAC basketball tournament presented by Buick.
Yeah,
I got it in. Even though they're not paying us, I got it all in. So
get a call from the conference office.
I know, right. I don't want to get any calls from the conference office.
Get your credential revoked.
Exactly, right. That's the last thing I want to have to do. Well, unfortunately, it looks like we're having some trouble with X. I don't seem, unfortunately, that is the one.
Blame it on Doge.
5, 6, 7, 8. Hold on. Now it's
one of those Doge cuts, Brian.
Oh, wow. So if you're watching us on X, going to say hello to everybody who's watching us. Doggone thing. Anyway. All right, here we go. I think it might be working now. I don't know. If you're watching us on X, Black College Sports Network at my BCSN1, do us a favor, share the feed. Coming up, also joining us a little bit later on the show, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill will join us at the top of the hour. But of course, Drew and I of the Sports Wrap on Sunday. So appreciate anyone who kind of is double dipping and you watched this yesterday. We told you today we're gonna go deep dive into some things, and we'll go from there. We got a little bit of breaking news here to start the show, and I think that's where we can kind of begin with us. I think that would be the most relevant thing, as of course Charles is in Atlanta and the tournament begins tomorrow. But as the SWAC usually likes to do, the SWAC likes to do their awards the day before, and as you can see, Charles is going to be a busy man tonight. So if you see him on mute or catching a call, that's probably what he's going to be doing. AD is always a very important guy. So who knows, at any moment in time, he may catch a call. I'm the only one who just kind of is here with no extra stuff to do tonight. I just called everybody up and said, hey, yo, let's do a show. Let's do a tournament madness special and kind of break down these games, these matchups, the season, so on and so forth. And Drew was like, okay, sure. So with that said, let's kind of, I'm looking here, I'm scrolling as the SWAC has released their players of the year, first team, and all that other stuff. Yeah.
Before we get into that, can we just quickly go over the Division II? Because a lot of people, including myself, fell asleep before the Division II pairings came out on the men and women's side. Before we dive into the SWAC and the MEAC, just give them about 5 minutes of love.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all the NCAA. Again, for those, the NAIA, by the way, begins later this week. We talked about that on the show yesterday, but begins Friday. And we talked last night on last night's show that the release of the brackets came out 11 o'clock Eastern time, the most ridiculous thing in the world, thanks NCAA. But there were people who were awake and retweeting and sending out information. So do you have all the information ready and to fire off, Drew?
I don't have a graphic we can pull up, but I do have the pairings.
You got the parents and the information. Okay. Because I know I did see
And
something.
we wound up with 5 HBCUs in on the men's side.
Okay. And we ended up with 5, and probably not
In
one
3
of the
different
5
regions.
is the one who we probably thought really should get in there. Probably one disappointment. And what about on the women's?
And on the women's side, hold up, I got to refresh my memory on the women's side.
I've got it pulled up. I went and found a nice article put together by HBCUsports.com. So I've got it all put together.
Well, since you got to pull it up, why don't you just start with it, man?
Okay. All right. Say hello to Jimmy Mack. Jimmy Mack, thanks for coming in and checking us out. And also to Lennon Blow. Good to see you as well. So we're going to got plenty of SWAC and MEAC talk, FAMU, Norfolk State, plenty of stuff.
Got 3 women.
All right. Yeah, I've got it pulled up here. According, I'm looking at the article here from HBCUsports.com. As the field was announced, these are the women that the women's side, the NCAA bracket. Let's start with Fayetteville State, the champions of the CIAA. They are going to the tournament. Excuse me, let me see. They for the 2nd consecutive year, they're going to the tournament. They were an Atlantic Region 7 seed, and they will take on Seton Hill in the opening round of the NCAA tournament.
I've got Gannon, Brian, on the NCAA website. 7 Gannon is the number 2 according to the NCAA website.
Really?
Seton Hill would be the number 3.
Okay. So again, I'm reading off the article, and if you're looking at the NCAA site, well, then go with the NCAA site then.
Right. And then Virginia State was the number 8.
Also in the Atlantic region.
Yes. Edinburgh.
Yeah, Edinburgh. Okay. That article does have that information correct. Okay.
Right. And then keep going.
Well, Miles College, Miles women who won the SIAC. They are the SIC champion. They are the 8th seed in the South region.
Correct.
And they will take on Union, Tennessee, the Gulf South Conference champion, who have a 29-3 record. So the Golden Bears, Miles, again, an 8th seed taking on Union. Virginia State, an 8th seed in the Atlantic, taking Edinburgh. And Fayetteville State, a 7th seed, again, taking on whom?
So
I just pulled it off, Brian.
That's all right.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'll
All
get it back up.
How much is it?
I believe it's 2 something.
All right. While Drew is looking that up, I'll we'll come
Gannon.
back.
Gannon. Yeah, number 2 Gannon.
Gannon. Okay. 2nd seed Gannon. Okay. I'm gonna give Charles a minute while he's like I said, busy man. All right. So here are the teams for the men. You've got Virginia State in the Atlantic region as a 3 seed, taking on Westchester. Is that what you have on the bracket, Drew?
That is correct.
All right. Fayetteville State, and at a 4 seed in the Atlantic region, taking on Fairmont State.
Correct.
Also in the Atlantic region, Bluefield State gets in as an 8 seed. They will take on West Liberty. This is Bluefield's first ever appearance in the Division II tournament. So congratulations to Bluefield State.
And if everybody remembers, up until they went into the CIAA a couple of years ago, they were a D2 independent for a number of years.
Yeah. All right. In the South region, Savannah State, number 8 seed, as we predicted last night. They will take on Nova Southeastern.
Which will also be predicted.
the 1 seed. And then over in the Midwest region, Lincoln, Missouri, the Blue Tigers, they end up as the 7 seed, making their first appearance I should say their first appearance in the national tournament since 1981, right? So they're taking on Lake Superior State. Of course, Lincoln, Missouri, the champions of the Great Lakes Valley Conference. And that's it. And so the one team that we didn't mention, Drew, Miles College, the men, who went 19-1 in the SIAC, 23-4 overall. They were the 7 seed going into the tournament. Drew, what happened?
7 ranked.
I'm sorry, 7.
You know what happened, Brian? You know what happened? And
tell me.
Myself and one of the assistant coaches looked at it today, and we looked at the net. And that is the ranking system that the NCAA uses to determine the strength of a team.
Right.
Brian, there were 12 teams who had a net higher than Miles.
Wow.
12. And Miles had the highest net in the SIAC. Numbers don't lie. That is exactly why Miles did not get in.
Who jumped them? One of those higher rated net teams?
Well, you got to think about it. The SIAC got their got their AQ in, which was Savannah State. But when you actually, even though they had the rankings, the regional rankings, when they actually look at the net, and this is not the first time that HBCUs have been done like this. If you remember last year, you had Clark Atlanta, Miles, and Morehouse sitting 6, 7. No, Benedict was in there. Clark Atlanta, Benedict, and Miles, and Morehouse was 6, 7, 8, 9, I believe, in the region last year. And who gets in? Benedict and the AQ of Clark Atlanta. And the only reason Benedict got in, because of their non-conference record, they had a high net, which is how they got in. So it's been a topic of discussion amongst SIAC people. What do we have to do to get those at-larges? Numbers don't lie. We got to get our strength of schedules up. Not only did Miles have 12 teams above them, but of all of the Division II conferences, Brian and Charles, the SIAC was dead last in conference net. That's why Miles did not get in.
Wow.
So at that level, AD, I mean, we know on the Division I level, the SWAC, the MEAC, in terms of improving strength of schedule, those quad 2 games. So how do you do that? I'm not as familiar with that level. You're really good at it. What does it take in terms of improving the scheduling? Is it geographics that prevents that? You got teams in different regions of the country where it's hard to schedule those type of games.
It's not hard for the way it's set up, because just like in football, there are 3 teams that go into a region in basketball. For us in the SIAC, it's the SIAC, the Sunshine Conference, and the Gulf South. Where the Sunshine Conference has one of the highest nets, if not the highest net in the nation on the Division II level. And I believe Gulf South is number 3. It's real easy. All those Gulf South and Sunshine State teams, they surround a lot of our SIAC teams geographically.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to go out and play some of these teams that are in your neighborhood. Yeah. So, and let's be real, Charles, we know we're going to have to play them on the road.
Yeah.
Or if we're happy to get a home and home, like Morehouse did against Valdosta State this year, we actually got a home and home with Valdosta State, and we split with them. Too bad, we weren't in a high enough position because Valdosta State made the tournament. So if we were close enough with our other non-conference games and our conference record, that would have benefited us because we beat a team that was in the tournament. We played two other teams that are in the tournament and played them close. So Morehouse not afraid to go out and schedule these teams, come win or lose. But everybody, as a conference, we have to do it. And I'm probably gonna get in trouble for saying this. So please don't record this.
Do I need to mute you? Do I need to mute you while you say it so you can say it without any kind of anybody listening?
We got to stop playing these NAIAs. We got to stop playing these NAIAs, man. I know they're good, depending on where you're at for the rivalry and for the gates and everything else. Certain NAIAs bring in a rivalry, but at worst, you're playing one time. No more home and home with NAIAs. No more playing 3 and 4 different NAIAs. You play that one for the gate and go ahead and do it because of that money. Let's be real, Charles. If I could get 2,000 people in my arena with the NAIA opponent, and I'm only gonna get 300 people in the arena for certain SIAC opponents, heck yeah, I'd be stupid not to schedule that NAIA opponent. But I only need it one time.
Right.
I don't need the home and home.
Yeah.
So
Is there
just some things to ponder over?
Drew, as you mentioned that, I wonder, is there any data that could be put together to show, because obviously if we're playing these NAIAs, if Division IIs are playing NAIAs, very similar to what we see in the football world, right? But if at Division II level or even Division I, we're most likely playing these schools more, and you mentioned more than one. So if we're playing more than one, I got to imagine there's ticket or gate attendance factors. So with that said, at some point, who's going to start putting the data together to show that you playing these 2 or 3 extra NAIA teams hurt the conference? But at the end of the day, should 8 or 9 schools really be concerned about the conference? You know what I'm saying? When it benefits them to play an NAIA locally that yields a good return on the tickets and the attendance. I mean, there's got to be some kind of trade-off there. I don't know.
And you're absolutely right, Brian. But here's the thing. Why is a certain institution doing it? If you take a Morehouse, you take a Tuskegee, you take programs that are fully funded, all 10 scholarships at that level. Mm-hmm. Let's be real. If you have 10 scholarships, you're expected to get to the tournament. It's that simple. Okay. You're expected to win the conference. If you're a team that only has 4 scholarships, then yeah, make as much money as you can. Get your gate. But the teams at the top have to suffer. And it's the same argument that we have in the SWAC, Charles. Where in football, in basketball, in baseball, in softball, whatever sport it is, you've got certain teams whose president has that vision, or the athletic director has that vision, where they want to compete. They're going to give you the maximum support, and they expect maximum results. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's some other ones that it's like, you know what you're doing when you take the job. I'm not going to call those schools out, but you can look at their rankings on what Commissioner's Cup, President's Cup, whatever your conference calls it, and figure out real quickly who those schools are who actually take that approach to athletics. And I'm gonna give you one, and this is a football one. Has anybody ever paid attention to what Alabama State does in football?
Yeah. They play Miles. They play Miles probably every other year, and they play Tuskegee every year.
They stay they stay in the state of Alabama. Out of their 11 on a normal season, out of their 11 games, they're going to have 8 to 9 of them within the state of Alabama. That's called being smart. That's good for your fans. That's how you build a brand.
Yep.
You know, shout out to Jason Cable for doing that. Everybody doesn't do it. And it's the same. You can do the same thing in basketball. But, you know, and it almost has to be a conference mandate. You can only play X amount of NAIAs. And I'm going to, this is going to be my last thing on this subject. As much hype as Morehouse got for that victory against Howard, y'all know that didn't count, right?
No, of course it didn't count. No, it didn't count.
It was an exhibition. It was an exhibition when it's all said and done. So, you know, that's the approach we're going to take. If we're going to play our exhibitions, we're going to play up and get a check. It's that simple.
Well, that's what we did.
Some people are going to bring in a NAIA and get a check, and that's fine. But those 28 countable games, you need to be playing. You got to play either 20 or 21, depending on which side of the conference you are. Those other 6 or 7 games that you play, or 8 games that you play, you need to make them count.
Go ahead, Charles. You were going to.
Well, I mean, and you know, for example, Alcorn played Talladega in an exhibition game. Talladega got a check. Talladega also got the win.
Yeah. How'd that do for morale?
Well, I mean, it was the first game. So, I mean, hey, and Landon Bussey would have it no other way because he knows Talladega is going to be tough. And then he goes to Xavier and plays at Xavier and loses that game. That's Landon Bussey's alma mater. When was the last time that happened? Where a SWAC team goes and plays in that type of environment. The Braves lost the game, but it was a teachable moment. It was Landon Bussey's alma mater. You understand that, but he knows that Xavier's a tough out.
He was giving back. He was giving back to Xavier with that one because it's 3 hours, 3.5 hours to New Orleans from Alcorn, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of New Orleans and Baton Rouge people who attend Alcorn, so that was a good opportunity for those alums to watch their team play in their own backyard. Now, Charles, and I know we don't own this longer than we were supposed to be, but were those games financially beneficial for Alcorn playing Talladega? And no crowd.
Just to be honest, I mean, if I were to guess, Talladega might have got $2,500 or $3,500, $4,500, somewhere in that ballpark. You know, the expenses were,
and the crowd wasn't all that.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Now, if you'd played Tougaloo, you had a crowd.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, some of our SWAC teams avoid Tougaloo because Tougaloo's pretty good. And you know, we played Tougaloo one year, guys, and we lost. And there was a lot of headache and grief behind that because Tougaloo and Alcorn's a pretty nice little rivalry, whether it's in baseball, whether it's in basketball, whatever the case. And you know, Tougaloo had a good team. This is several years ago. But you know, I've heard that we're not going to be playing Tougaloo because you don't want to take that L and take the pain and the disgust that goes along with it. I mean, I get it, you know, but I think it's a good test at that time of year. But I do understand, Drew, what you're saying in terms of those quality wins. I mean, it sounds like it's the same type of thing. When you play down, those are games that you would love to be playing in another realm to where it could help bolster your case. But I understand why coaches do play down because they want to taste what a victory, they want to feel what the victory tastes like. That's why we play a Talladega or our women's team plays Arkansas Baptist, something like that, because they want to experience a win where it's usually tough to win a game in November and December in the SWAC because you're playing so many of these other guarantee games.
But Charles, those don't need to be your countable games. Those need to be exhibitions. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
All right. While you guys were working there, good discussion. I was trying to get our graphics ready for this quick segment, but let me bring on the dean as he is in the waiting room here. We got him just in time. Welcome in the dean, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill. Doc, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Representing a little bit for the CIAA as they enter into the Black College Invitational Championship. When we take a first break, I'll switch over, put a SWAC shirt on. I got a MEAC shirt on. I can go whichever direction you want to go. We represent them all.
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, it's a good transition because you just
Where's my
mentioned...
SIAC look?
I got the blue on for the SIAC.
You just mentioned,
but it's not being shown. No, I'm just messing with you, Doc.
you just mentioned the postseason tournament. We were just mentioning off air or during the last segment, Miles missing out. What is the when will invitations for, and I screwed up the name of the tournament last night. Drew gave me some wrong characters and alphabets, and then I almost made a bad mistake on the air. So put the name of the tournament out there so that way we can make sure we have it correct.
Black College Invitational Championship, BCIC.
BCIC. Right, not to get confused with anything else. Black College Invitational Championships, okay? And the format again, 8 from the NAIA Division II and 8 from the Division I level, correct?
That's correct. 16 teams. You'll have 4 from the CIAA. That's 2 women's, 2 men's from the CIAA. And you also have 2 men's, 2 women's, if you would, from the SIAC. So that's your 8 teams there. And then you have next week they'll do the announcement for the Division I. Major division is, we like to say on this side of the street, which will have 8 as well. It'll be 2 women from the MEAC, 2 women from the SWAC, and then 2 men from the MEAC and 2 men from the SWAC. And so it'll be interesting. In terms of this week, they have announced the teams. As you said, Miles College was not one of the teams. They were highly ranked and sought after, but this is an invitational, and you have to accept your invitation in terms of that. So some teams don't make it because they have a choice. And for whatever reason, they choose not to accept the invitation. And so some things, new. Some schools may think a little bit differently about that. Also, some schools are going to the break. Oftentimes, you have coaches that talk with their team. Do they want to continue to play? And unfortunately, some of them may be that dejected, if you would, that if you don't catch them early enough and kind of market this, a lot of them will decide not to play. And so that's a challenge, but we certainly understand it. And you just move forward like a lot of the invitationals until you get to the point where you work with the conferences directly. And you're able to get maybe some automatic buy-in from the conference where you have a contract set up where a conference helps and supports a team on some level to make sure you get your automatic teams that are maybe the first out, if you would, from the NCAA Division II tournament or the NCAA Division I tournament. So you have Allen University versus Virginia Union on the women's side, SIAC versus CIAA. The other SIAC versus CIAA is Clark Atlanta versus Livingstone. Then on the men's side, it gets interesting. You got Clark Atlanta versus Claflin, and then Morehouse versus Johnson C. Smith. You have that Atlanta versus Charlotte matchup on the men's side in the evening to close things out. So you got a little bit of the city things going on with 2 fantastic private institutions. So I'm fascinated to see. A lot of these schools had tremendous seasons when you think about Allen University, particularly Virginia Union and Clark Atlanta on the women's side. Both those teams had 20-win seasons. And then you had some of them just bumping up to it when you talk about Clark Atlanta on the men's side, Morehouse on the men's side, and Allen on the women's side. All those teams had 18 wins, Claflin just outside of that 17. So it should be a fascinating matchup when you think about that from that tournament. Going down the stretch, those championship games, semifinals should be intriguing things to watch. I'll be in town Friday to kind of be able to come back to the Black College Sports Network and give an update next week to let you know what things happen after we get the announcement of the Division I programs next week.
Okay, well, that's definitely some good intel, good breaking news right here live. Definitely, I'm surprised about Miles. So, just I don't know. Nothing surprises me again this day and age. It's some of the factors you mentioned, but also, the NIL transfers, things of that nature, the portal. Kids. It's not to get on this, not to beat this horse, but it's why I kind of one of my reasons why I am anti doing the entire 12-team SWAC thing, which is next year. But we're not going to talk about that. I promise. We're not going to talk about that for next year.
Yeah, we got time to get in that debate. I will say this quickly that it's important before we go off on the media one way or the other, and I'm saying you can still do that. Sure. I think one thing that we need to get used to is actually making sure that we get some insight. I mean, Charles is good about asking that question. From whether it's ADs, VPs of athletics, or the commissioner's office, and talking about what is the goal. Because once you find out the goal, then I think you may have a level of appreciation. You still may have a disagreement, but there's a question. They've added now, the dinner banquet where they award teams. So everybody has to have some format of people being there if you're really going to bring that up to what you want it to be. The other thing that Drew is really good about this when he's talked about what do you do when you're trying to get the significant investment from the city. The city wants beds. They need people to stay in the night. So the bigger money that you're talking about, the more teams you get involved of it, the more investment you get from the city. Well, that can directly impact the money that's going to your teams, which means now the teams have more money to put in basketball. So we always talk about the product, but one thing is the commitment from the fans and the alumni, but we're also talking about ADs getting money and the commissioner of these conferences getting money. But then when they do things to get the money, we say, well, no, we don't like that. Is it about the money, resources, and then we can hold them accountable in terms, does it improve? Is the money going back to the program really? I think that's another way to look at it. But sometimes I think we jump over our skis to say what we do or don't like, and we really don't understand the big play in terms of how it directly financially impacts the decisions that are being made.
That's a great point. And a great perspective on that. Okay, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. And on the other side of the break, we're going to go with the breaking news that came out earlier this evening. The SWAC Awards for the Player of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year, Coach of the Year. Plenty to talk about there. First team, second team, all of that was announced via the SWAC today. I would presume the MEAC will do theirs tomorrow, which is one day before their tournament starts. The MEAC tournament doesn't start until Wednesday. So I'd presume that theirs is tomorrow. So right on the other side of this break, we'll get into talking about this, and then we'll get into talking about the matchups and brackets, not only in the MEAC and the SWAC. The SWAC tournament begins tomorrow. So hang tight with us. You're watching a special game time edition of Tournament Madness right here on the Black College Sports Network. We'll be back in just a moment.
Planning an event? From weddings to corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC brings over 15 years of experience to make your vision a reality. Based in Metro Atlanta and serving statewide, even internationally, we provide versatile event planning and authentic catering cuisines tailored to your needs. Whether it's pre-game meals for student athletes, fundraisers, weddings, corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC is your one-stop solution for exceptional service and unforgettable food. Our diverse culinary heritage means we cater to all cultural tastes, dietary needs, and food restrictions, making every meal uniquely yours. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Visit us on all social media at CMJ Events LLC or email us at cmjeventsllc@gmail.com. Also give us a call at 404-664-3882 so that we can start planning now.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Welcome back to a special Game Time edition, BCSN Game Time edition, the Tournament Madness special, as the host here of the Black College Sports Network shows. Of course, AD Drew and I, co-host of the BCSN Sports Wrap every Sunday night right here on the Black College Sports Network. You see there the Dean, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill. Every Tuesday and Thursday night is when you can see him, 7 o'clock Eastern, right here on the network. And soon to come back is Charles Edmond, co-host of the Carlos Brown Show, which is every Saturday morning, or I should say Saturday, noon Eastern, 11 Central, right here on the network. Charles is, of course, live in Atlanta, so I know he's kind of shuffling duties there and talking to people, and so once I see him in the green room, I'll put him back in. But before
Charles
we get
not the
into
only one live in Atlanta.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Drew is live in Atlanta as well, from his home studio, though. While Charles is more likely on location. And here comes once again Charles Edmond. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the other thing, Brian. Before we get into it, the last thing is like, one person's trash is another person's treasure. When you think about Miles did get the nod or decide not to take the invitation and open the door for Morehouse, because we had that talk, Drew, we was talking about, with Clark Atlanta not winning, that it liable would bump Miles out with Morehouse getting in there. So, now Morehouse gets a chance to go see if they can win a championship.
Yeah. I had to talk to you about it offline, Doc.
Breaking news, as they say.
You don't want to break no news right now, Drew? We're breaking any news? No? Okay.
And no, let him blow. I am not breaking any news on this show, let him blow. June 30th means nothing to me, Lennon. I just want you to understand that. And also shout out to my guy Chris Cameron, who's watching us. Just shot me a text. Is that you I see on the podcast, Drew? Yeah, that's me, bro. Coach Chris Cameron.
Lennon is excited. He's all ready for the NSU Invitational. I'll tell you.
Not on the men's side. Not on the men's side.
I'm telling you, we'll talk about that coming up here shortly. All right, let's get to the breaking news, the stuff that just released. The SWAC postseason awards. Let's start with the women first. The postseason awards came out. Jackson State get a double dip from young lady Talia Dilworth from Jackson State, was named the Player of the Year as well as the Newcomer of the Year. Dilworth led the conference in scoring most of the season, scoring 475 points. That's an average of 16.4 per game. She opened the season scoring her 1,000th career point on the road against Missouri. She has recorded 28 double-figure scoring games this season. Charles, you've had a chance to see Dilworth, what's your and you two, Doc? So I'm gonna let you two kind of talk about, if not Dilworth, and congratulations to her. Are you okay with Player of the Year for Miss Dilworth? If not, who else probably should have been in consideration?
Oh, no doubt about it. I knew about Dilworth because Alcorn recruited her, and she obviously chose Jackson State. So she could have been a Brave, but she was a Tiger, and I got a chance to see her twice, and she's a volume scorer, and she helped carry that team. So I have absolutely no issue with Dilworth. I thought she was pretty consistent throughout the course of the year. So you kind of saw as the year went on that she was gonna probably get that. She was gonna be one of the best players in the conference, and obviously the voters saw the same thing.
Yeah. Where does she transfer from?
I don't know.
Okay.
All I know is that Alcorn Nate Kilber was telling me early in the year she was interested in Alcorn and vice versa, but she chose Jackson State, and clearly it worked out for her.
Gotcha. Congratulations to her. Doc, any comments on Dilworth or any other ladies who you thought might have been in consideration for the award?
I'll start with Dilworth. I want to celebrate her. I thought she really did well. As you said, 16 points a game. Really good in terms of what she got done. I thought that matchup that they got done where she put in 13 points, big points against Texas Southern University, that really came back from behind to win that game. I thought she had a solid contest all year long, but that was one of the big games down the stretch that I think you give her major credit for in terms of what she's getting done. So I was really excited in terms of what she did there. When you talk about all over the conference, there were a couple other teams that you certainly could look at. Alabama A&M was right in the mix in terms of their stats. Let me get her stats real quick. When you talk about Taylor Walker from Alabama A&M, they had 15 points. I think in terms of how they finished the season, even though they had the head-to-head loss, if you would, against Jackson State earlier. But they finished pretty strong in terms of coming out the box. So I think if you were looking at any other player, certainly on the first team, you could look at Kayla Walker that gave 15 points average points in the SWAC. So that was maybe somebody else that you have on the list. But I like the newcomer of the year, player of the year. I wouldn't really get upset in terms of what took place here. Really solid.
Nice. Drew, you have anything? I have nothing other to add other than where I'm at. I'm gonna move forward. You got anything?
I don't want to butcher her last name, but the Nicholson young lady from Bethune-Cookman. I think her team record hurt her. She led the conference in rebounding, top 10 scorer in the conference. So when you have somebody who ranks at the top 10 in both scoring and rebounded, they should definitely be considered for Player of the Year. But also, your team got to win. We don't have too many Andre Dawson awards right here where you get an MVP type player on the last place team. That doesn't happen too often. But it is kind of refreshing to see that. No offense to Southern, and of course Southern is more of an even-suited team. But a lot of times your Player of the Year comes off of the team that finishes in first place. So this year, kind of a player on a winning team, top 3 team, top quad, as Charles likes to say. So yeah, but I'm good with picking a player out of that top quadrant of teams, the best player in that top quadrant. So I'm good with it though. But I just want to throw that other name out there just for.
No, I got you. And Southern fans may be a little miffed when they see the first team all SWAC in a moment. So I'll just kind of give that as a nice little tease. Moving forward, a young lady that Charles knows very well, Defensive Player of the Year was none other. Destiny Brown. She led her team in points per game as well as block shots per game, 1.8 blocks per game. She tallied 47 total blocks in 26 games this year. leading the Braves to a 10-8 record. And then you can see the freshman of the year was Crystal Schultz. A phenomenal season as a freshman, averaged 9.3 points per game while scoring 169 total points. And yes, folks, there are still freshmen that play college basketball. So good to see that. Charles, what's your thoughts on Destiny Brown? You get to see her every day of the week. What's your thoughts?
When Destiny Brown makes up her mind that Destiny Brown is ready to play like she did the other night, Destiny Brown could be the best player in the entire Southwestern Athletic Conference. But some nights it's not like that. Some nights it's a tough matchup. Some nights she's just not ready to go. But Destiny Brown defensively has been a stalwart for this team the entire season. So definitely I think that was the right selection. But if Destiny Brown just brings her mind needs to be right, she could win all the offensive awards. Scoring, rebounding, blocks, you name it. But it hasn't been that way this season. But Destiny Brown on the defensive side is really good, and I have zero problems with the defensive side of things as far as that is concerned. And look, at least freshman of the year, you look at where Prairie View is near the bottom tier, and you see that I, at least in my opinion, I think people are doing a little digging and trying to determine, when you talk about these individual awards, you assume that they're amongst the top teams, but not necessarily the case. And I'm glad to see that. So I have no problems with Schultz. I thought she was a pretty good player for Prairie View, even though the record didn't reflect it. And I thought she had a really solid freshman year. So I have no problems with both selections.
Nice. Doc, your alma mater there, even though you're wearing purple with some MEACs, a lot of purple there on that screen there representing. You want to add any thoughts or words there?
Yeah, I appreciate the purple and gold. I actually wear this at Prairie View to some games, and people can't quite understand that. I said, it's purple. It has the gold in there. What's the problem? I'm still in color.
You got breaking news, Doc?
I like to show people off. I like to wear different stuff to show love across the board. I cover it all. So at times you see me making sure that we represent, not for just who we are. And one of it is just to do that part of it. Another part of it is as a professor, educator, I like to educate other folks. And so sometimes we get so trapped in our own place. If we don't do what's necessary, we don't do that. But yes, I think freshman of the year, very solid opportunity. Oftentimes the challenge you have with freshman of the year, they're freshmen. And particularly in this environment, freshmen don't often get a chance to play. So it's going to be challenging over the years to see that. But she got a chance to play for a team that kind of had an up and down season, which makes sense. A more senior level team, you'd hope they would perform better. But sometimes when they get in the hole, you either allow the freshman to play or you have a hole in your lineup where a freshman gets to play. And play with folks that are bigger, stronger, more experienced. She held her own. So I think that a lot of credit goes to the freshman of the year, Schultz, and it'll be interesting to see how she continues to grow and matriculate, and can you put enough talent around her such that Prairie View continues to grow and move back in the top quadrant that Prairie View, that in the last decade, I guess it says now, which is different. Hard to imagine, time flies, when they were in the leadership part of the conference. In terms of Brown, Defensive Player of the Year, I'm like Charles. I think he said it perfectly. That's very talented, 1.8 blocks. The fact was, even for defensive rebounds, she was at 7.7. So she's fourth in that category. Go back to Nicholson, that Drew gave a little love to earlier. She led in terms of defensive rebounds, 11.7, but she wasn't top 5 in terms of blocks or any other area. So I like that Destiny was able to kind of spread the love around in terms of showing her talent on the defensive side of the ball. So I think they got that right as well in terms of the mix going on there. So just wanted to kind of give some love, not just to the freshman of the year, but the defensive player of the year to get it done in the conference. And you think about it, Alcorn had some of the biggest wins. And a lot of times it was because of what she was able to do. When you think about the fact that Alcorn got wins over Jackson State and Southern, the two teams that came at the top of the conference in terms of their matchups, the top quadrant, again, as Drew alluded to what Charles likes to talk about. And I like breaking it down into quadrant to give you some framework of where teams are finishing in the 12-member league.
And Texas Southern. I mean, Alcorn, that was the first
Yep.
place
That was the
team
first one. Yep.
that came into the Whitney Arena last week, and the Lady Braves handled that. So, we've had some tough losses now. We've lost twice to Valley and some losses that we probably shouldn't have had, but we've beaten some of the top teams in the league, 3 of the 4, as a matter of fact. So we're in the same position we're in last year, where we had to go through the 3, the 2, and the 1. We got to do the same thing again this year. Maybe different teams, but same type of path.
Mm-hmm.
Quickly, before you pass it on and get back to it, Brian, is the other thing about Schultz is she led Prairie View's team. She was a team leader as a freshman with 9.3 points a game.
Wow. That's impressive. I always think it's interesting what defensive stat matters the most to voters. Is it the steals? Is it the blocks? Is it the defensive rebounds? I don't know if you're looking at you'd have to really go deep dive to look at other analytical defensive stats, but those are the 3 that probably sit on most people's mind when you think defense.
Right.
So I just find it always interesting to kind of hear where someone falls in this category. Drew, what do you want to add here?
Well, I know one name that I constantly heard on multiple podcasts when talking about, especially Alcorn State Brave basketball, was Destiny Brown. So Destiny Brown getting a postseason award for the entire conference does not surprise me. I know she was out a game or 2, Charles, if I remember correctly, and the team was affected by it. The team did not perform up to standard without Brown there. And as far as freshman of the year, while it may be easy to pick freshman of the year, because you're always going to have one that stands out. What is becoming tougher in today's environment, gentlemen, is picking an all freshman team, because it used to be you would have 10 slots that you're supposed to vote for. Heck, you may not even have 10 freshmen in the entire conference anymore. So who played any type of significant time. So while freshman of the year awards are, you usually can tell who the best top freshman is. Putting a 5 out there together for a whole freshman team, that's a challenge now, fellas. And trust me, I just voted a couple of times on some postseason awards. I'm like, okay, there are not enough people to nominate. We barely got enough for a team here,
Who's still doing an all freshman team? What conference is still doing that? SIAC is doing all freshman team?
We still do all freshman team.
Wow. Okay.
But Brian, you don't want to take the award away because it's an opportunity for some kids to get recognition.
Right.
So you don't want to eliminate an award unless you absolutely have to. So
it's going to be interesting when you think about the what they're doing with spring football. I mean, will that become the thing too? Will coaches get nervous about putting an all freshman team out there? We just had Blow talk about the fact that some teams may be looking at Prairie View's freshmen in terms of leading the teams at 9. So that's another conundrum. And you're right. You would hate to take it away, but I could start seeing some coaches may get a little antsy and being like, maybe you shouldn't do the freshmen, and using the excuse that you first talked about, the fact, well, we don't have enough people to get on there. But the real reason may be the fact that they trying to quietly hide the players from being coached, for lack of a better word.
And another thing that tends to be tough also is next year's preseason awards, because you know how it is. If you're first team and you have eligibility left, you stay on first team. If you were second team and the first team slot is available and they're gone, you move up. Sometimes we get to the point with these preseason awards where you had nobody from last year's team that you could slot into it with just your natural articulation. Doc, you was talking about it was great to see this freshman play. You forgot to leave out you left out the other half of that statement, Dr. Kabir. It's great to see them play, but now the question is, will they stay?
Yeah.
All right, let me introduce the first team.
Absolutely.
The first team,
Absolutely.
all
But
SWAC.
I like the freedom of players, so I'm open to it. Go ahead.
Now, who's the regular season champions again? I just want to check on the women's side.
Southern University.
Southern.
Okay, just checking. So here's your first team, all SWAC. Of course, consisted of Talia Dilworth of Jackson State. You had Alicia Wilson of Alabama A&M, Kalia Walker of Alabama A&M, Alacia Fontroy of Texas Southern, and Destiny Brown of Alcorn State. Again, okay. Now, the second team, no graphic, but I'll just read the names. You had Anaya Gordine of Southern, Kahia Wormsley of Grambling State, Cordasia Harris of Alabama State, Ajanay Nicholson of Bethune-Cookman, and Cheyenne McEvans of Florida A&M. That was the second team.
So did I hear that correctly, Brian? And excuse me, fellas. First team, second team, the regular season champion only had one player.
Correct. On
but sometimes I think we get caught up just because the team is first team. I mean, what if it's truly a team where the talent is spread out, where they share the load, which could give more credit to the coach, and the coach got Coach of the Year, that they succeeded in terms of the individual talent on the team. For example, when you just had that list, offensive player was Talia Dilworth, Jackson State. Defensive leader was Nicholson for Bethune-Cookman. Harris Smith was the assist leader. Destiny Brown was the block leader. Pantroy from Texas Southern was steals. Allen from Pine Bluff. Where do you lead in terms of any of your categories? The top person for Southern in terms of stats was Gordine in terms of steals. She was second at 2.4. But do you take Fantroy off in terms of finishing at the top of the conference of her team? Also, you got to calculate in that while you give credit for Texas Southern, credit for Southern for winning it, Texas Southern was leading things until the point guard got hurt with a concussion. Now, the paper is going to say that Southern won it, and they got the number one seed, and they earned that. But I'm saying these are two different things. And I think sometimes we look at just the fact that you won, but what did you do in the stats? The stats in terms of what individual players did oftentimes and lead it. And if they were clearly above other players, to me, you're hurting them because their team necessarily didn't finish first. I think the reward that Southern got for winning games was being the regular season champion.
But don't you just love when I toss a softball to you, Dr. Cavilla, because you just took all of the points that I was getting ready to make. But yeah, that's what I was gonna go with this. You know, that was a fastball.
Basketball. Appreciate the alley-oop.
But no, seriously though, you know, although Southern only had one person receive those postseason accolades, you know, they got the most important number there, and that's the W's. They had more W's than anyone else, and now, no offense, Southern, no offense to the number 10 seed, everybody's 0-0 beginning tomorrow.
But I think Dr. Caville brought up a good point, though. I mean, we do as fans, fandom, get caught up in the best team should have the best players, offense, defense, rebounds, blocks. That's just not always the case. So I agree with what he said on that. And in fact, that Southern University could be more dangerous because they don't have those stars. I think Southern's top men's score is number 15 or 16 in the conference in scoring. But that tells you that Southern's not about scoring, they're about defense. And so that's another category to kind of, you know, take a look at as well. It's not always about the flash and dash. Sometimes it's about the grind. And that's what Southern has done on both sides. And the numbers individually don't show, but that means Southern's more of a team, because that means that the wealth is spread out throughout that roster instead of someone averaging, just like UAPB, Dr. Bradley, terrific player, averaging almost 20 a game in conference. Did that team make the SWAC tournament? They had a chance to. They do was beat Alcorn the other night. They didn't. And Dr. Bradley is sitting at home right now. And so it works the other way as well.
Yeah. And as somebody who votes on multiple levels for not only for team recognition, but for individual recognition, a lot of times as voters, we get caught up in the numbers. Who had the most points? Who had the most rebounds? Who had the most blocks? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, on conference level, regional level, national level, we tend to get caught up in the numbers, and it's human nature. It is human nature that you get caught up in the numbers, especially when you may not recognize all these names. So it doesn't surprise me because, like we said, Southern does not have anybody who has runaway stats in any of the in major categories or minor categories, but the one stat that they have ran away with are the W's.
Exactly. To repeat what my man Carlos said, Carlos Brown, team is the key word, not I. So there it is.
I agree.
Yes. All right, let's move over to the men's side before we get into the coaches. I'll do the coaches in a moment, but let's recognize the men's players, the awards, and we'll start with the Player of the Year. And I was surprised, but talking to my girl Liv, she thought this is who the award would go to, and it goes to Florida A&M Sterling Young, who averaged 17 points a game overall. But when you go to look in the conference statistics, Sterling led the league at 19 points a game. I think it was 19.8. Overall, he was number 2 behind. Well, actually, he was tied for points overall with Tanaj Petway of Prairie View A&M. Both of those young men scored 17 points a game. Now, Sterling played one less game than Petway. But then when you get into looking at the conference stats, and this brings up an interesting question, which I think I may have asked last year. Do you pay attention or value the conference statistics or the overall statistics? Again, overall takes into account the conference, but it also includes those 12, 13 games at the beginning when you're playing some Power 4, Power 5 teams, maybe some NAIA schools, things of that nature. So I know Drew's got his hand up. I'm curious. He's a voter, so I'm curious to hear his answer. But Sterling Young, again, averaged 19.8 in the conference, leading the league. And Charles, you mentioned Dr. Bradley. Wonderful name, by the way. He averaged 19.6. And actually, I think he scored the most total points in conference games with 353. But congrats to Sterling. I had a chance to firsthand watch Sterling against Bethune. And I mean, he comes off the bench, which is another thing which I think is fascinating for the Player of the Year to actually be. If there was a Sixth Man of the Year award, he probably would have got that too. So Drew, your hand was up. So what do you say, sir?
Conference award, conference stat, regional or national award, season stats.
Okay. All right. What's your thought, Doc and Charles, on Player of the Year? And then I'll get over to introducing the defensive player there.
I thought Sterling Young was quite scary in the two meetings with Alcorn and FAMU. I mean, of course, one of those big wins coming back from 20 down at Alcorn to beat the Braves. Young as well as Matthews, a great 1-2 punch. And Young, volume score. I mean, I have absolutely no problems with that. And I think, you could put Dr. Bradley's name in there too, but I think at times he doesn't get enough shots and teams kind of clamp down on him. But Young, man, he lets it fly, and he's really, really good. I'm really in agreement with Young as Player of the Year.
Doc, what do you add?
I like Young as well, particularly when you start looking at the fact that he was top 5, if you would have tied actually with number 4 with 3-pointers made per game, 2.1, particularly in the league where 3-point shots is huge. And you've seen them have some big games when they were able to knock down those threes. So I like that. Obviously, you have Petway, Prairie View that was tied with him, leaders in points per game. But you think about Prairie View having their success early in the season, finishing at number 10. It's a challenge to give somebody that just makes the tournament finish at number 10.
No Andre
Player of the year, particularly they weren't in the top 5 for 3-point finish. I think you could give some love maybe to Trey Thomas. He was right behind it at 16.5. They beat FAMU twice. Obviously, the last one was a historic come from behind last second win, but they did knock them out twice in the season. So I can see you making an argument for Trey Thomas, but I have no major heartache with Sterling Young. He played some very solid basketball. I saw him up front and what he was able to do when he did the Texas two-step. So I'm a little biased in terms of what he did when he came to Texas, to helping his team get both of those victories against Prairie View and Texas Southern. So that sold it for me right there in terms of the games he had coming to the Lone Star State. So I like Player of the Year, Mr. Young.
Hey, AD, you brought up a good point, and it's something I got to think about too, because I kind of not wash away the non-conference games, but you can't discount them either in terms of just your overall body of work. I mean, you have a team that goes 0-13 in non-conference, getting beat by an average of 20 a game in non-conference. So you know the stats aren't the best, but then that same team lights it up come conference. Individuals light it up come conference. It's a whole different ball of apples or bag of apples. It's a whole different deal. So I'm just wondering, you take that body of work as a whole, or do you just look at the conference games? This is a conference award. I'm kind of torn on that, in my own opinion.
Yeah, when I voted nationally, even though they may have been for HBCU awards from that perspective, I like the idea of what Drew said. You know, in terms of focusing on the SWAC, I like the idea of looking where the player did in terms of the SWAC, but I also look nationally and see what they were able to do. And sometimes I like, if it's really close in the vote, if the player averaged similar numbers in non-conference as they did in the conference, that I might go edge with them versus a player that was able to just to do it in the conference. I also look at where they finished. You know, did they finish at the bottom of the conference or at least at the top of the conference? They don't necessarily have to finish first place, but in that first quadrant, I like to see you finish there. Did they have big runs? Did they surpass what the team expectation was coming into the season? So I look at a couple of things before I do a Player of the Year, and I kind of sum it up. And at the end of the day, I might find a tally or two that has me nudge somebody over somebody else if it's really close.
So because FAMU exceeded expectations, and I think we can say that they did.
Yes.
Was that did that get?
That was my final. Yeah, that was my final decision that made me go with Young. Yeah. He was really close, as you said, in terms of what he did national scoring over that period of time. But really focusing on what he was doing into the league and how he propelled FAMU to have a great season. At one point, you know, they were in the top quadrant. Yeah. They slipped a little bit late, but, you know, also look at who they were playing in that scenario. And he still did his work and helped his teams to have very competitive games. It wasn't like they got blown out in those games also. So, yeah, those are the things that I looked at in my vote. Obviously, I'm not counting in the conference vote, but I do my own voting in terms of national awards and HBCU awards, and he was my pick.
Yeah. Well, let me expand on mine. Like I said, I'm going to take the conference stats first for a conference award. Then I'm going to look at your team, like Doc said. Where did your team finish? First, overall, just 1 through 12. Where did your team finish? And compared to expectations, you know, was your team supposed to finish 1-2, and they did, or was your team supposed to finish 10, and they finished 3? You know, the team that was predicted to finish 10 and actually finished 3. you might get a little bit of more weight on it, especially if you are one of the main reasons why that team made that big leap. You know, obviously you have to look at best player, best team, and see if that person has gaudy numbers when you start doing it. And if it's still close for me, that's when I start looking at those non-conference matchups and everything, common opponents or something along those lines. How did you do? And we'll just take Young right here. How did you do against a Bethune? How did you do against a Southern? You know, or were you stat stuffing when you play Valley? You know, those are if I really have to get that deep into it, those are some of the things that I have to get into the factor to kind of to separate one player from another.
Drew, are you a SWAC voter? I think we had this conversation too, as far as people who could vote. I mean, you and Brian are very, as well as Dr. Cavill, a lot more analytical than me in breaking down these all conference teams, because I think what you just said and what Dr. Cavill says, even Brian breaks it down. It really helps to make, in my opinion, a really good ballot, because there are cases to be made one way or the other in terms of just the margins. The margins are pretty small. So the way you all break it down is outstanding.
Charles, I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes I really hate voting for player of the year, first team, second team, and all that, because I am so analytical. And it seems like they said these ballots at the worst possible time for somebody in my position. Because it is the same thing when it comes to me voting I voted Dr. Cavill's weekly polls, or I voted in other polls. Sometimes, and I'll tell them, I'm not voting this week because I have not had time to do that, and I don't think it's a justice just to do a blind vote. Okay, this team went 3-0 this week. Okay, and who did they play them? If they went 3-0 against Little Sisters of the Poor, yeah, they're gonna look good. Or did they go 3-0 against a quality team? You know, and if I don't have time to look at all the teams that I'm considering, you know, I could probably go give you your top 2 or 3 teams just on osmosis. But you know, I really cherish my vote, and I want to do these players justice and or the teams when I make team votes. So I like to do my research and have my stuff where at worst all I've got to do is update from last week to this week and see what player X did or what team number 1 did. So that's just me.
Very well said. We need to have a bunch of AD Drews doing these ballots, a bunch of Dr. Cavills and Brian Fulfers, because you all break it down pretty deep in my opinion. You know, I'm not as deep. I probably should be a little bit more, but you all dig it a little bit deeper than I would, for sure.
But when it comes to the SWAC, Charles, because you in your position as broadcaster, you see a lot of these things. So you probably bring the one thing that myself, Dr. Cavill, and Brian can't bring, and that's the eye test.
Yeah.
You know a player when you see it. You know he can ball or she can ball because you bring the eye test, and because I don't get to see these things a lot. You know, I try to watch as much film as I can, but a lot of time the film winds up watching me by the time I get home from work. So, like I say, you have that one advantage that the other 3 of us on this panel don't have.
I add this because I do want to make sure we give some love to the defensive player of the year, Nunley. Particular, he happened to be on the team that won it, and we got somebody that was recognized on his side. But to Drew's point, I do like the fact that Charles gets to sit there and see it. I watch a lot of games. I spent extra money on these games, and my wife and son kind of laugh because I find a way watching these games other than, putting aside at least when we sit down for dinner. But I do watch them, but I think it's different when you get to watch them live because I'm watching multiple games at times. And so you don't get to focus on a player and necessarily see a player's impact throughout a game. So not just the fact that you watch it, but to Drew's even deeper point is the fact that Charles gets the opportunity to watch the player in terms of the flow of a game. So oftentimes he gets to see a player, does he step up in critical time? Does he not only do things on the defensive side or the offensive side? Does he contribute to other key plays that are winning plays in addition to one of these things? So I love the fact that Nunley got it in terms of what he was able to do. But I must be honest, I was a little surprised that he was able to get the Defensive Player of the Year. Obviously, he led in terms of steals. He was top 5 at 1.6. But in terms of some of the other key categories, which is another indication of just how talented Southern is in terms of depth. We talk about it on the scoring side, but on the defensive side, they spread the love too. They didn't lead top 5 in terms of rebounds or blocks, and some of them weren't even top 10. I think they had a couple of blocks in top 10 at least. But Nunley was critical in terms of what we just talked about. He was a plug and made a lot of key plays when Southern had very close games. He got the small plays that a lot of times don't necessarily go into stats. So if you're watching the game, you know he's critical in terms of the emotional lift and what he's able to do, picking players up full court to wear them out throughout a game. And what he's able to do as an overall defensive stopper, shutting down other teams' top scorers. Very physical player of his stature. So he really wears out other teams and their guards and doesn't allow them to be effective as they try to set up in their sets, particularly in this game where you have coaches that really like to slow the game down a lot and like to see players get in offensive sets. He made it challenging. And when they would get into it, the clock would be further down. You can see them rushing through that. And I don't know if there's necessarily a stat that really measures that. But credit to Nunley for Southern in terms of what he's able to do. And it's going to be fascinating how effective he can be in the SWAC tournament.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask either you or Charles to talk about the eye test. I mean, because Nunley, you brought it up again. This is a small man's award. Well, it may not always be a small man's award, but the player of the year, the defensive player of the year. I mean, these guys are probably, well, Nunley is definitely under 6 feet tall. He's listed at 5'10", and I think Sterling is listed under 6 feet as well. But I wanted Charles to talk about what you saw from Nunley because you just mentioned the statistic thing, Doc. So, I mean, it's got to be something that you visually see and the impact that a player makes, which always doesn't show up in the stats that are being kept on the site or, next level stats, as we like to say.
Well, I think Nunley in the one meeting that we had with Southern University was 74-69, and that was, I think, the closest that any team had come to Southern University prior to playing Alcorn. So that was the only time I had a chance to see Southern University. And I just think when I saw Nunley, I saw a ball hawk. I saw someone that just get up, like the coach says, get up in you defensively. Just his size may be one thing, but he makes it so tough for any player when he's guarding you. I mean, he's just all over the place. And 50-50 balls, loose balls, just those type of tenacious plays to me is what, made Nunley stand out to me. And I said we only played him one time, but just his fingerprints were all over it on the defensive side. And that's what Southern University is about, defense. I mean, they're not the greatest scoring team in the conference, but they're going to lock. I think at one point they were giving up like a little over 50 points a game in conference. So they were locking you down, and Nunley was a big part of the reason for that.
Mm-hmm. Moving over to the newcomer of the year and the freshman of the year. The newcomer of the year was Milton Matthews of Florida A&M, and the freshman of the year was Dorian McMillan of Jackson State. You guys have kind of mentioned Matthews a little bit. Matthews, of course, the top three-point shooter in the conference. Of course, averaging shooting about 36.5%. Now that's overall stats. He also averages about 3.2 threes per game. He's hit 92 of them, so he leads overall in that particular statistical category. And I think he's, in terms of scoring, averaging 17.3 on the season. And then for McMillan, you've got a chance to see McMillan a couple times. What's your take there on McMillan? Again, another freshman there, Charles or Doc?
Yeah, I mean, we saw him twice. and he's a really good player, a really good shooter, freshman from Pascagoula, Mississippi. He really complements that Jackson State roster. You know, they had Shannon Grant, who was obviously a FAMU transfer, and I think his youth, even though he's a freshman, he didn't play like it. Really good guard, really good handles, and could shoot the cover off of it. So I have absolutely no issues with that selection at all. And Jackson State, look, if you just want to talk about one of the hottest teams in the league, Jackson State University, one of the hottest teams in the conference going into the tournament. And then you add a freshman in there. Is this moment going to be too big? We'll see. We'll see what teams do defensively on him. But I was impressed in the 2 meetings with him, his poise, and just with him being a freshman, he played a lot more of a veteran than he did a freshman in the 2 meetings I saw.
Yeah, averaged 10.7 per game for Jackson State this year. Anything else that Doc or Drew you want to add here about Matthews or McMillan?
McMillan, in terms of scoring for a freshman, top 25 in the conference. Team that finished second. I think that says a lot. He was able to get playing time. And, you know, he's not the go-to guy. So the fact that he's able to put up some points, and which means he's doing a lot of things, he has the respect of his team, certainly his coaches as a freshman, get out there and get some playing time in critical matchups. So I like what they did in terms of freshman of the year. Obviously, it's Matthews. Again, the game is played on the 3. It's played on the perimeter. So you got to be able to shoot the ball. The teams that can shoot the ball, obviously, there's times where FAMU was shooting lights out when they went on their streak, right? The big game, Charles told everybody. When they came back against Alcorn State, Charles came on the show on Saturday and said, watch out for FAMU. And I made sure everybody that didn't listen to him knew that Charles told me the cheat code, because I put out there and said, hey, FAMU's finna go on the move. And the reason I knew that is because Charles Evans told me. And so I started watching a little closer. I mean, they went on the thing. Now, they took a little dip, but I still thought about the fact that they were playing some of the tougher teams in the conference. They played Alabama State. They finished high. They were right there in these games. Southern, close in terms of that game. Bethune-Cookman. So even their losses down the stretch are 1 point, 1 basket games, right? So for him to be doing what they're doing on a team that people was an afterthought. Nobody thought about FAMU. Let's be frank about it. We've surprised they made the tournament. Not only did they make the tournament, they got some good rankings and really threw some monkey wrenches and had an effect on who finished first in that first quadrant. We know that for sure in terms of what they were able to do. Because you think about it, they cost Jackson State a regular season championship and did it early. That was one of the key losses for a team that's probably one of the hottest teams out there that went down the stretch. So I like Milton. I look forward to seeing this tournament because he gets a chance, and a couple of these other players get a chance to make a name for themselves, because if you can do it in a tournament, I know one thing, people will remember your name.
Yep, indeed. Here's the first team from the men's all-SWAC first team, consisting of Trey Thomas from Bethune-Cookman, Sterling Young of FAMU, Amar Knox of Alabama State, Michael Jacobs of Southern, and Tanaj Petway of Prairie View A&M. Now, the second team all-SWAC consists of, now tell me if you catch a couple of names that are off this second team, okay? TJ Madlock of Alabama State, Daniel Ruzan of Bethune-Cookman, Kavion McClain of Texas Southern, AC Bryant of Alabama A&M, Shannon Grant of Jackson State. Did you happen to catch the defensive player of the year and the newcomer of the year did not make the second team or first team of the all-SWAC player awards? Just thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll let you know that they were geared more towards offensive side of the ball, what folks were able to do offensively in terms
It's
of
all about the numbers.
Yeah, and so and you asked the question earlier, Charles, what way do people look at it? Once you see the outcome, it's kind of easy to say what the voters were looking at. We can question whether we agree or not, but the way things finished out, you can tell that the voters focused a little more in terms of what people did offensively in terms of the first and second team ranking. When they looked defensively, obviously they had to, and that was a person. And as we said, there was nobody that, in terms of stats, that separated themselves from everybody else that may have got somebody on a first or second team. You had the top person, and they were rewarded with defensive year, but it wasn't anything, I should say, that had folks pausing in regards to the superlatives in terms of first team, second team recognition.
Right.
What I'm impressed with, to me, in being in this league as long as I have, I remember the Avery Johnsons and the Bobby Fields of the world going way back when they were filling it up, averaging 20 a game, 6 threes, whatever. This league this year, to me, is so many good shooters from beyond the arc. FAMU's got 2. We've got 2. Alabama State, they won some games. They almost beat us at our place. They beat A&M. They beat Florida A&M twice. Their 3-point shooting, to me, is the biggest surprise, along with FAMU, in the whole league. I didn't think Alabama State was that good from beyond the arc until I saw that they were good from beyond the arc. So I think the scoring, the 3-point shooting, we know that's kind of the problem with the NBA. A lot of 3-point shots in this conference. There's a lot of 3-point shooting, a lot of good 3-point shooting in this league. This year, anyway.
And there's also a lot of bad 3-point shooting in this league.
There is.
Make sure you say it correctly.
Yeah, I certainly think that there's something, but I think a lot of that is a credit to the defensive side of the ball. These teams pack the paint. You're not getting driving lanes in this conference. Coaches will sit you down in regards to this. So you're going to play some defense. So the only time, oftentimes, is a 3-point. And some of those bad shots are the fact that they're late in the clock and teams are actually throwing it up. Now, I would like to see a little bit of maybe more of the mid-range game, taking those shots a little more. But they are passing at the folks that are open. They're just missing the shots. But a lot of that is because you just cannot drive to the basket.
Oh, yeah.
And Doc, you're right. You can't drive to the basket. And when you got players who are out here dancing with the ball and dribbling the ball and not going anywhere, rule for basketball: don't put the ball on the floor unless you're going somewhere. Don't dribble and stand in the same place. And you don't have a lot of that. And what we don't see anymore, fellas, we see screen rolls all day. We don't see a lot of people back cuts. We don't see giving goals. We don't see people actually screening away for somebody else to get open. They want to screen and come to the ball so they can get the ball. Just my gripe about basketball in general. And like you say, the order of the mid range is gone.
Yeah, I think you're right. You need more passing in the game, but the way that you try to spread the court out and the way defenses are playing, it's just a tougher game. You almost need to widen the court to some degree, in my estimation, which I know is a huge can of worms. But just the way that coaches coach defense at this level is, and to your point, for me, I like the up tempo, moving the ball. I like fast breaks, but that is basically eradicated from the game in terms of just how teams are playing on the defensive side. They pick you up, they make it tough, they guard you up front. So even when you're trying to get the backcourt, you better be moving because folks are sticking with you, and the referees allow you to tug a little more in this game than they used to. In the pro game, there's not a lot of handshaking. In the college game, they allow you, and they even call the bang bang block foul that is just sickening to me. But they call it, and I'm talking about just not the SWAC, but all over in the college game. In the pro game, you get close to somebody, it better be a clear charge that they calling. Are they calling the blocking foul? In college, they call offensive charge all the time, and you're like, man, the dude just got there. But that's how they call it in college.
Yeah. Let me transition, move forward here. Southern fans might not be excited about some of the individual awards for the players, but they can be excited about their coaches because Southern took the sweep on Coach of the Year awards. none other than the men's coach, Kevin Johnson, and the women's coach, Carlos Funches, were named the coach of the year. We talked about that. I remember you guys, whether it be Carlos on the Carlos Brown show, what traditionally happens in the SWAC. And so it looks like you guys were right, Charles, in terms of you kind of you're in first place. It kind of ends up going to you. But we had an interesting conversation offline, Charles, that there might have been some overlooked coaches, who in terms of preseason expectations achieved greater than where they were predicted to finish.
Yeah, I was just talking with our coaches just before we went on, and some of our coaches believe that Burnett Skeet was picked to finish ninth, finished second, somewhere in there, seven spot improvement. And I'm like, well, what about Coach Funches? Well, he was picked to finish either second or third. He won it. Well, the phrase was, well, that's what he was supposed to do. And so when you look at this award now we're talking about the women's side. Now the men's, from what I've been told, regular season, the team that wins the regular season, that coach is going to get coach of the year. So that's probably not going to change. But there was some discussion about, Coach Skeet and the improvement that she made from preseason to where she finished, and whether that changes or not. I mean, it's an interesting discussion. It was kind of back and forth before we went on the air, but at the end of the day, Coach Funches got the nod there, and the coaches obviously voted for him as coach of the year. But that discussion on the women's side, and it's not automatic either, unless they decide to vote it out in June at the coaches meetings. They may make it like the men, but as of right now, it's no guarantee. You win regular season, you're going to get that team's going to have coach of the year. It's an improvement from preseason to post, and Burnett Skeet had it, but Coach Funches won it. So you have to give him credit for that.
Hey, if FAMU doesn't fall off the last week, 3 games of the season, is Patrick Crary a strong candidate for coach of the year, especially considering what he had to deal with on a personal level? And then, if FAMU wins those last 3 games, probably in second, no lower than third place in the SWAC. I mean, you could have made an argument. Now, they fell off a little bit at the end of the year, so he kind of took himself out of it. But he would have definitely had a strong argument for coach of the year.
That was something we had discussed.
Yeah, I agree with both. I agree with both of you on that. I think they got it right with the 2 coaches of the year, and for me, it's going to be because of how other teams finish down the stretch. Obviously, you have the framework with the men, where basically you get the automatic win there in terms of what takes place. So let's just put that in there. But let's say that we were outside and we got the vote for it. I would have leaned towards Southern. I had FAMU. Coach McCreary was right there in the mix. I didn't like the way they finished the season as the head coach. To the credit, there were a couple of close losses. But to go on the stretch, if I was going to give the nod to him, I would have liked to seen them finish a little stronger, maybe found a way to finish in that top quarter. And that would have been my final nod. I want to give some love over there to Jackson State in terms of what the coach did there. Top 4 finished down there, 1 game back. I thought that people kind of forgot where they were. They got the early hype, but they kind of put their nose down and really played some good basketball. So I got some credit there on that side. I also want to give some credit head coach Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. I think you could have made an argument for him in terms of getting an nod, particularly when you talk about the heart of that season, when they had all those injuries of those players out and they still were able to finish. They got 2 big road wins at Texas. They went home and lost 2 straight, but then they bounced back on the road and got 2 more victories to put themselves right on the cusp and making an argument, and got that big win over Southern, which was huge, and then the last-second comeback win against FAMU. I think you could have gave some praise there. On the women's side, I like the question mark, the Coach Ski. I think you certainly could have made an argument for Coach Ski. I did not like the way they finished the season. Obviously, a lot of it has to do with the injury of the player. So I took that in some balance. But to me, I need you to find a way to win maybe one more game during that stretch. That tough loss they had on the road to Jackson State, being up 10, falling late was a little bit too much to me. But she's right there in the argument. Credit to her in terms of the season. If they can get the if they can get the point guard back healthy in the tournament, they can get the biggest award and find a way to cut down the nets because they are that talented and they should be a team to look at on down the stretch. One more name I want to put out that I think we would be remiss if we did not shout out Coach Thornton. What she did with the Alabama A&M Bulldogs, she's out there in the social media. She made a huge transition when she went from Pine Bluff, where she stacked everything in there. She went over Alabama A&M, talked a little bit about what she wanted to do in this season, had a lot of hype early, kind of took a couple of bumps, but she finished extremely strong with the team, second in the conference. Obviously, if it wasn't for a tough loss to Grambling and finding to get the win against Southern, which you got to give credit to her, she wouldn't have to worry about what we thought because she would have won it, and she probably would have gotten because she would have had the head-to-head victory over Southern late. She got the number 1 seed, just letting you know how close these things are, and she probably would have got Coach of the Year. So she's right there in the mix. But fascinating when you talk about the season they had. It's a team that you got to watch as we start looking at teams to watch for in the tournament. And you talk about those top 4 teams. Wow, it's going to be incredible for both the men's and women's side in terms of the depth of this tournament and the top 4, particularly 4 seeds in this tournament.
I'm supposed to play the Charles Bishop on this show right now. Shame on all 3 of y'all for not mentioning Margaret Richards.
I was going to get there.
Yeah,
Doc got me with the Thornton. I was going to mention that, but also
she had absolutely nothing left over from those great Jackson State teams that Tamika Reed put together for them, and for her to finish 4th, 13-5 in conference, somebody better had voted for her somewhere in this thing. I don't know how many votes she get.
I would love to
she
see
definitely
the
deserves some votes.
I would love to. I know they don't publish this, and I wish they would. I would love to see how close a vote it is. I gotta believe that the voting.
I know y'all like Charles and Charles will go on this show, but I'm gonna have to push back a little bit. That loss to Prairie View at home is and then you double down. I know it's a rivalry game, but you cannot lose the Valley. You cannot lose the Valley.
That loss to Valley is the same as that last week for FAMU. I agree with you on that, Doc. But you do have to. She should have at least been in the conversation, Doc.
And she might have been. But we don't know. We don't know because they won't release
the conversation. You made sure she's part of the conversation.
And Doc, and it's something about people that fans know about losses to Valley and what they can do to your season.
I'm just saying she also has the review at the end.
I would love to see
when she was getting them victories over Alabama A&M. I had her up there. I was like, yes, she's
all right. So it brings me to the question.
Win over Texas Southern, I give her credit, but that lost to Prairie View. No.
All right. We're gonna take a break. Come back. David Rhodes is going to join us in this next segment. We're going to get into going to the MEAC or to the SWAC. We're going to start with the SWAC, and then we're going to go to the MEAC. We're going to go through the matchups, but as we get going, I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions, maybe a fewer questions than what I had originally intended, looking at our time. So, but I do want to get into these matchups and go from there. And then also want to encourage everybody, if you're watching the show, you need to make sure you're following us on X and on Facebook, because tonight you get a chance to join us in a bracket challenge. So we have put together SWAC men and women's bracket contest, a MEAC men and women's bracket contest. And so we want to encourage you to join not just one, but all of those brackets and make your predictions as to who you think will win the matchups and the tournament overall. The SWAC begins tomorrow at 11 a.m. So when I post it after we get done tonight, you got to make sure you get signed up, or maybe you do it first thing in the morning, whatever. You'll have an extra day to do the MEAC because the MEAC doesn't start until noon on Wednesday. But this should be fun. It'll be interesting to kind of see who everybody selects for these tournaments. All right, the conference tournaments coming up beginning tomorrow. All right, let's take a short break. Come back with David, and let's get into talking about these matchups in the tournament on the other side. You're watching a special Game Time episode here on the Black College Sports Network, Tournament Madness special, getting ready for the SWAC and the MEAC tournament. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loop machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Welcome back. Game Time episode here, BCSN Tournament Madness. Welcome in David L. Rhodes as Drew stepped away for a quick minute. Dave, what up, Dave?
What's going on, man? Third show tonight, man. It's gonna be a fun one.
You got some juice left in you?
Just a little bit, not too much left though. It's between the BCIC show and PNP tonight because of free agency in the NFL. It's been a lot today.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been a lot of stuff going on.
Anybody can do it, it's David.
I know.
Absolutely.
I know. All right. We're going to get into talking here primarily SWAC.
Ryan, you see how they switched up on you? I'm back.
I just noticed that. You caught the memo.
Give Doc 2 minutes, man. Those are breaks.
Yeah, Doc, he caught the memo there. All right. So we're going to get into talking about the SWAC tournament here. We're going to start with the ladies' side first. Let me make sure I pull up the bracket here. So for anybody watching, we got the bracket here. One of the first questions before we get into this, that I asked you guys, of all of the matchups, and again, what I love about this is you get the first 3 days, you get it's well paced out, it's spaced out rather. So you get the first round matchup, between the 7-10, 8-9. Then you get the introduction of the 1 and 2 seeds on day 2, taking the winners of those first round games. And then you get the other half of you get the 3s and the 4 seeds matching up. So you get a 3-6 matchup and a 4-5. So I'm gonna just give a quick nugget as we go bracket by bracket. let me do that first. Let me go in these opening round matchups, and then the first question that I want you guys that I'm gonna ask is the first round matchup that could produce the potential upset, and then what kind of factors might come into play for someone to advance in this tournament and win a couple games. So let's kind of go game by game, guys, and let's just kind of go through just general thoughts here. Of course, game number 1 begins at 11 a.m. Eastern between number 7 seed Bethune-Cookman, who picked up the 7 seed thanks to beating Florida A&M, versus the number 10 seed Prairie View A&M. The only time these teams met was back on February 8th. Prairie View won that game at home 65-60. We'll just kind of go around the table. We'll start with Doc. Just general thoughts on this game. We'll go Doc, Charles, then Dave, and I think when Drew jumps in, he'll join us as well. So go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, I think Prairie View had, a 3-game win streak where they played some really good basketball, but they closed the season out on a tough stretch. I don't like what they do overall in terms of the inability to really shoot. As we said, a freshman is leading the team in shooting. I don't think that bids very well in the tournament. I have to go chalk, and I'm really going to do that for the whole tournament for the most part. Until we get deep in there, I might be able to give you something. And when you're talking about an early round upset, I'm going to go with Bethune-Cookman, so I don't see one. Only upset I can give you in the first round early, I know we'll get there, this is not one that you're going to be excited about. This is the 4-5 matchup, just because it's a rivalry. I might go with Grambling. Jackson State, as I said, really didn't finish the season that strong. So that if there is any upset, that would be mine. But in this first matchup, you said Bethune-Cookman. I'm going to go with Bethune-Cookman over Prairie View.
All right. What do you got, Charles?
Yeah, for me, Prairie View, they beat Jackson State in Jackson, and then the Lady Braves handle them, 2 nights later. Prairie View have been struggling, and you just don't know which Prairie View teams are going to show up. I think this game, I'm gonna give the advantage to Bethune-Cookman here. I've seen them play twice. I think they play really hard. They can shoot the basketball. They have a really decent post game. Just not sold on Prairie View. I'm gonna go with Bethune-Cookman in this one.
Dave, what about you?
I'm with Charles and Dr. Cavill, man. I don't see a path for Prairie View. I know they beat them earlier in the season, but when you come to these tournaments, it's a war of attrition. So I'm taking Bethune here. I'm rolling chalk here for now. I might have some interesting ones later, but I'm gonna roll with Bethune here.
Drew,
yeah, that's the longest trip. Prairie View's at home. Bethune-Cookman had to come from Daytona.
10 seed.
I can't put much in it.
Fair enough.
Drew,
I'll make it short and sweet. I'm going with the team from the beach.
you're going with Bethune from the beach. All right. The interesting matchup, I opening round, the game that I'm personally interested in, but I also think is interesting from a storyline angle. Number 8, Florida A&M, who fell to 8 after losing to Bethune-Cookman in overtime, and the number 9 seed Mississippi Valley State, who shocking upset over Jackson State on Saturday, 70-68. First time they've beaten Jackson State since 2018. So I don't know how many games that is. I think that's at least a cool dozen games that they have lost to their in-state rival. I don't know if you can call them. Let's just say their in-state opponent. I guess you got to beat somebody to be a rival. But Valley has won 7 games this season, which is a record. In previous years, Valley has only won like maybe 3 or 4 over the last few seasons. 7 wins. They're the hottest, might be one of the hottest teams coming into this game. FAMU won the first matchup, but that was all the way back on January 16th. Teams are rarely who they are in March back in January. FAMU won that game 88-60. I'd be shocked if it's that big of a blowout. And I think this is a dangerous one for the Rattlers, who have given up, who have lost 6 of the last 7. And most of those have either been in overtime or by single digit. They put some big name teams on the ropes, but man, they have not been able to finish. What do you got here? We'll go down the order this time. Dave, what do you got?
I believe in momentum. I know, and this is a record year for Valley from a win standpoint. I believe in momentum, man. Then to pull off that win against Jackson State, I'm taking Valley, man. I'm sorry, Brian.
I understand.
I'm taking Valley. I think it is after that, but I'll take Valley for the upset here.
Drew, what do you got?
And while I can respect Dave, and I'm really trying to take my Rattler bias out of this particular matchup, but Coach Pressure, as we like to call her on the hill, the highest of 7 hills, by the way, Dr. Cavill, not y'all little bitty hill that y'all got down there in Texas. She's a champion. She's a champion.
About a little bitty hill.
She's a championship coach, and if you remember last year when FAMU snuck into the tournament last year, they were a tough out last year, and I think that experience of having been here last year, with that being her first time in the SWAC tournament, she's going to take and learn from that, and she's at least going to get out of this first round. And I'm just going to fast forward just a little bit. FAMU barely lost to Southern twice. So it's tough to beat a team 3 times. So I know we haven't got to the upsets yet, but that's the first one that I would look at. Should FAMU survive Valley?
Yeah.
Charles?
I just saw Valley play last week. Valley beat the Lady Braves twice. They just beat Jackson State. First time they've been in the tournament since 2019. I'm going with Valley.
I'm telling you, man, momentum matters.
Valley's
Man.
playing with house money, ladies and gentlemen. Valley's playing with house money. No one expects Valley to be in this bracket. And they had a little coaching change, and it's paid dividends. Valley is playing wide open. And look, I like Coach Gordon. Very well dressed, very mannerable. All that. I love what she does. She's had some tough losses, some brutally tough losses. But Valley's going to come in there wide open, footloose, and fancy free. What have they got to lose? I got Valley. I think Valley's going to play hard. I think they're just going to let it all hang out, and I think they're going to catch FAMU sideways. And I think Valley's going to win this one. I got Valley.
You know what they told Valley before they came to Atlanta, Charles?
What's that?
Y'all done already messed the budget up because y'all wasn't supposed to be there. Don't mess the budget up no more by staying.
Nah, man. Let me tell you something, man. The ones that ain't gotten to lose tend to be the most dangerous.
That's right.
Yeah. I hear you, Dave, Charles. It's got, yeah, I know they won. Yeah,
all right.
And you lost 6 of the last 7, 3 straight. Valley's won 3 straight. Nope. I'm going with Bradley.
Love you, Doc. I will say, it is kind of fascinating if a 9 were to win in the opening year where we've expanded the tournament.
It'd be great.
Oh my God! Well,
it'd be great. It won't be great for y'all, but it'd be great for the tournament. It goes back to chaos. I mean,
let's be fair: the 9 or the 10 on either side.
Yes, the 9 or the 10 winning would kind of shut people like me up who say, "Oh, we don't need more than 8 teams." Then we'd have to sit there and eat crow for a whole year when the tournament expands to 12.
Chaos is fun, man. You gotta. It's just not fun when you're suffering from it. But chaos is fun.
That's well said. That's well said, Dave. It's fun, except it's like we say, it's all fun until the rabbit has the
gun. The gun. That's right. Chaos is fun.
Okay, moving into Wednesday. Now, Wednesday is when we get the matchups against the 1 and 2 seeds. So 11 a.m. you get and I should say I didn't go back and say the time frame. The time on that FAMU Mississippi Valley State is a 5:30 game. Should be a heavy pro FAMU crowd. Better be, because I don't know what Valley's going to do in terms of their travel, but I know there's going to be a lot of Rattlers in the building because the men play after the women. So it should be a packed house of orange and green for those of you who know. Okay, moving to Wednesday, 11 a.m. Texas Southern will take on the winner of the Bethune-Cookman Prairie View game. Just to give a little background on the 2 matchups, potential matchups, Texas Southern went 1-0 in their 1 meeting against Bethune-Cookman, winning 64-57 back on February 6th. They went 2-0 against Prairie View, winning 82-69 and 64-60. Anybody see a challenge for Texas Southern based on the opponent in this matchup?
No.
Nope.
No.
Nope. Okay. So the 1 seed Southern played at 5:30. What is he saying? No, is he saying no for the next question?
Absolutely not, huh?
No.
All right, let me get the stats out of the way here before you say no.
I'll let you have some fun.
I'm not even going to ask the question. I'm just going to
did all that work for them stats. I'm gonna let you use it.
Well, all right. All I'm going to say is Southern is 1-0 against Valley by a 20-point win back on January 27th. They are 2-0 against FAMU. Of course, most recently, they snatched a victory from the jaws of defeat in Tallahassee.
Lord.
Dave, come on now.
They're not in Tallahassee for this one.
Well, I'm just saying they
are. They're in Tallahassee North.
Okay.
Y'all
might not be there to enjoy it.
Even though Southern is technically 2-0, we could argue Southern is really kind of 1-1, maybe 1-1. But anyway, Doc says no way Southern's losing. Does anybody see a challenge in this contest besides me that if FAMU finally gets over the hump and wins that first game against Valley, I think they're going to give Southern a hell of a game. Anybody else foresee anything like that happening?
I can see it. I if FAMU beats Valley, and of course I have Valley winning, but if FAMU does win that game, I do see FAMU giving Southern a heck of a contest just because they have recently. And so I do think that if that were to happen, I can see a good game there.
Styles make fights. And FAMU and Southern, FAMU is that one team that has a style that can counteract what Southern does. Now, is FAMU going to sneak that left hook in this time? As a rattler, I hope they do. But FAMU has more than a puncher's chance against Southern, as they proved, as Brian said, as they had the game in their hands, but they let the ball slip through the mid.
Mm-hmm. The one injury that I think may make a difference here among these top 10 teams might be the injury that FAMU suffered on Saturday to Sydney Hendricks, who's a starter, one of the top 3 young ladies on this team. I don't know. I haven't heard any word on her status for the Valley game. Is anybody aware of any other injuries that might play a role here in somebody's opening round game?
Yeah, the Lady Braves, one of our top players, Charmaine Finley, 2 of her family members recently was admitted to the hospital. She played very sparingly against Mississippi Valley. Mentally, she wasn't really in it. The 4th quarter, she wanted to come in and give it a go, but you could tell that just her mind wasn't there. She's here. She's here in Atlanta. The question is, since we don't play the Thursday, we'll see, what her state is. But if she can't really give us much, and you would expect that, I think that could be an impact for us, as we take on Alabama A&M.
Okay.
Obviously, same thing with Texas Southern point guard. That's the question.
Is she back or is she not back? What's the?
She didn't play against Prairie View, so
okay. Still
a wait and see. I think they have enough to get out of that first round, but that second round, if she's not there, I think their tournament comes to an end.
And Doc, let me expand upon that. Players coming back from injuries during tournament time is challenging not only on the player, but also on the coach and the other players, because obviously you're talking about a rotation player pre-injury, and during the time out, be it a concussion, be it an ankle, other people have to step up and earn those minutes. So when the rotation changes at this time, there is no margin for error. And as a coach, you know this player, you rode this player all season to get you there, but you don't have normal practice time during this time of the year. You know, you get your 45, 55-minute shoot around, and that's it. So, you know, you have to worry about that, the conditioning level. You know, one day out is about 3 days worth of conditioning to get back to that level. So players coming back at this time of the year is not good for the player or the team. And the coaches who have to deal with that have to make tough decisions when they decide to play these players.
Great point.
All right, the Thursday, the last of the quarterfinals are on Thursday. Games 5 and 6 at 11 a.m. You got Alabama A&M, the 3 seed, taking on Alcorn State. Charles, 6 seed. Alabama A&M won the only meeting 66-56, but that was all the way back on January 11th, long time ago. What's your thoughts on this? And let me say this: 2 days of sitting around and watching everybody else play. What kind of mindset does that put you in? A good headspace, or are you kind of antsy to want to play watching everybody else play?
I just being around the team just a little while ago as they were getting their meal. I think they're in a good space tonight. They did not get the practice time in at the arena. I think everyone got 30 minutes, but the team didn't get here till late, so they didn't get that. But they'll find a place to practice the next couple of days. I think they're in a pretty good space. But again, we'll have to see what Charmaine Finley's status is, because she's a volume scorer for us, and she had been out with an ankle, but she's working her way back. But I think for this Lady Braves team, nothing really bothers them. I think that they're going to be ready to play. Sometimes they look like in practice they're not ready, and then they come out and blow the doors off of it, like Jackson State in Jackson. The Friday practice, they did not look sharp, wondering where they come out, and they came out, and they listened to coaches coaching the day before, and they won that game. So I think if Charmaine Finley's not available, it's going to be interesting. But with Dawn Brown's team, we hadn't seen them in a couple of months, but we've gotten a little better. They have as well, and I think it'll be a good matchup.
Yeah. And Charles, you mentioned practice. I will confirm there have been about 4 or 5 teams who have contacted us about using our facility for practice and shoot arounds over the course of the tournament. So
yeah,
nice. Dave, how about you? What do you see this one? How do you see this one playing out?
Alcorn State made an incredible run last year.
That's right. They were in the championship
They
game
were in the championship game
last
last year,
yeah.
man. But oh man, it's gonna be tough for me not to pick Alabama A&M here. So I'm gonna roll with the chalk I'm gonna roll with the chalk, and if I'm wrong, so be it. But oh man,
ain't my money.
I told you earlier, I'm going with chalk.
I'm
going chalk. This is going to be boring for me in terms of the women. I just don't see anybody that's been consistent enough. Question marks. I really don't see upsets on the women's side. I know it just tends to happen somewhere. So one of them I get wrong, but I guess anyone, if I had to call, wins Jackson and Grambling, but which is 4-5, you could throw that up in there anyway. So no, I think this is pretty much going to go chalk.
Alabama A&M is the team that worries me because I had my concerns coming in. And then when I finally was drinking the Kool-Aid that everybody else was passing around, they end up blowing it on Thursday night when they could have had a matchup against Southern to win the conference.
Yeah.
And the reason that I think Southern lost that game is because Southern already had the conference won. I told you, there's the greatest motivating factor is the best play in the world is catching a team after they just won or clinched the tournament. And there's no motivation. There was no motivation to play Alabama A&M. It's like, we just got the conference. So all the motivation was with Alabama A&M for seeding purposes. But the game that A&M needed to win, they blew. So that's this team worries me. Of all these other teams in the tournament, the team that I think has the chance of playing in a championship, but I will not be surprised if the Bulldogs are out on the first game. I will not be surprised, not at all. So
that's why I'm like so nervous because Alcorn's done it. And that's why I'm like, Alcorn's done it, man. And I'm sitting here and I'm like,
I'm telling you.
I'm
There's
picking
my
it, but
upset.
man, I don't feel comfortable about it.
But there are some people out there that are going to say, well, which Lady Braves team's going to show up?
Yep.
Is the Lady Braves team going to show up that's going to be Jackson, that beat Texas Southern and Southern? Or is it going to be the same Lady Braves team that lost twice to a lower seeded team, albeit Valley's much improved? Which team's going to show up come Thursday? And I think that it's a justifiable question.
Yep.
So what you guys are saying, Brian and Charles, we're gonna either get a double overtime thriller, or we're gonna get a garbage game. There's not gonna be no in between because we don't know which one of these teams is going to show up for either one.
Double overtime. I'm telling you, this is the game that could end up going double overtime right here.
Another game's gonna get delayed because of this game is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Because let me see, this is the 11 a.m. game. It's just gonna throw off the whole schedule all day. This 11 a.m. game is gonna throw everything off.
Ain't nothing worse than overtime to start the day.
Yeah, exactly. Two of them at that. All right, and then the 5:30 women's game. Jackson State is the 4 seed. Grambling State's the 5 seed. During the regular season back on February 6th, Jackson State won 67-56. Doc, I know this is a 4-5. Doc, you going chalk on the 4-5 as well?
No, yeah, I'm gonna go chalk on it. If you forced me to say upset, this is the one I got. Grambling State over Jackson, but I got chalk. And until we get basically deep in the semifinals, I might give you a little bit of entertainment. But right now, I'm just chalk.
Charles, what you got?
Man, Grambling is a team that I kind of written off early in the season, but then all of a sudden they're playing a little bit better down the stretch. This is a toss up for me because Jackson down the stretch has struggled.
That's true.
If I had to put some money on it, Margaret Richards' first tournament as Jackson State's coach.
Right.
I'm gonna go with Grambling.
Good angle. Drew, what do you got?
Israel, I got your back. I'm going with Jackson State. Just like it's something about when you see Texas Southern on the men's side, that's just that much intimidating. When you see Texas Southern on the men's side, I think it's the same thing when it comes to Jackson State on the women's side. I'm staying chalk, Jackson State.
Dave, what about you?
Momentum guy. I'm picking Grambling. Tamika Reed is not here.
Consistent momentum. He likes
Jackson State's had some tough losses. Grambling's playing better. Tamika Reed is not at Jackson State anymore, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to pick Grambling.
We're gonna call him Mo.
And you just lost the Valley. It's the Valley effect.
I look, man.
We talking about Valley. You just lost the Valley.
Yeah, rivalry or whatever you want to call it. You did lose the Valley. I'm going with Grambling.
I'm going with Grambling too. You just lost the Valley. I'm sorry. That's what it is. All right, let's fast forward here. So we picked a first round matchup. Let's take the top half, and who comes out of the top half? Who do you have going to the championship out of the top half? Doc, top half of the bracket. Who gets to the championship game?
I'm interested if Jackson gets into that semifinals against Southern, but at the end of the day, I'm going Southern.
Charles, who you got?
Oh,
get a piece of chalk.
The top part
half.
of the bracket.
Championship game.
I'm gonna go with Southern University.
All right.
I'm gonna go with Southern.
Charles, Carlos would be proud of you, Charles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Carlos will never invite me back on his show again once I make this prediction then, because 2 years ago, or was it 3 years ago, I remember when Jackson State came in with all the hype, and in the semifinals, that team in the powder blue beat them. I think this is the year Southern comes in with all the hype, and the team in the dark blue gets them. I'm going Jackson State.
Interesting angle. Okay. Dave, what do you got?
I'll keep it simple, man. Southern's going to the championship game.
Southern going to the title.
Southern, yeah. Like I got Grambling getting there against Southern. I don't see them. I don't see Grambling beating Southern.
Man, this is a tough one. I'm Southern. I'm gonna put it like this to y'all: the winner of the Southern FAMU game ends up in the championship. That's all I'm gonna tell you. That's all I'm gonna just lay it out like that and say what I said.
So if Valley wins, will Valley get to the championship?
I'm saying, what did I just say?
No. I'm not.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
I'm telling you what I said. All right, bottom half of the bracket, which I think for the women's game is more fascinating. It's more interesting than the top half. That first game, I'm telling you, y'all just watch how this bracket plays out. That Valley Florida A&M game is going to have an impact on what happens. Just trust me on that. You guys are going to come back and say, B, how did you know? Okay, but anyway, bottom half of the bracket, go.
Don't put your lunch money on it, Brian. Don't put.
Oh no, I'm not. Thankfully, they don't have that market on the table, so I can't go there. What do you got, Doc? Bottom half of the bracket. What do you got?
I got A&M going to the championship. I got them cutting down the net.
Ooh, Alabama A&M, huh? Okay, man. Charles?
That is my official upset. Alabama
okay.
A&M a 3 over the 2 Texas Southern.
Okay, in the championship. What you got?
They're gonna get the upset over Southern, the number 1 team.
Oh, okay. I'm Charles. I'm gonna save you so that way you don't have to make a prediction here. But I will maybe reframe it and say, for Alcorn State to get to the championship game, they have to do what?
Destiny Brown has to show up.
Big time players, big time games, right?
Destiny Brown has to show up, and hopefully Charmaine Finley will give us what she can give us. But Destiny Brown, like she told Nate Kilbert before the UAPB game, I want the ball. I want it often. She had over 20 points. That's the Destiny Brown that has to show up here. Unfinished business for the Lady Braves. They made it to the championship game last year. They have the team. If they show up, they can win the whole thing.
Love it. Go ahead, Drew.
Thanks, Doc. Doc said I was on to something. I like that. Thanks, Doc.
Well,
Drew, bottom half of the bracket.
It's real simple. If Texas Southern is at full strength, Texas Southern comes out of this. If Texas Southern is not at full strength, I'm going A&M.
Dave?
What is this, man?
You like these ifs? We these ifs.
I'm not here for
if was a fifth, I need to have some for the night.
I got a fifth downstairs, but y'all hold this podcast.
Go ahead, Dave.
I know Dr. Cavill did not agree with me saying that Valley's going to beat Florida A&M, but I think he will agree with me because I think Alabama A&M is going to win this whole tournament as well. So I got A&M going.
Lord have mercy. All right.
Dawn Thornton, it's time for Dawn Thornton to get it, man. Like I know she was at UAPB doing her thing down there. Now she's at Alabama and she's gonna pull it out. She's gonna get it.
I agree.
This is the year. She's gonna get it.
All right.
She had a little bit of that magic at Prairie View when she won the tournament. Last game was Brown, but
y'all go ahead and put your. Anyway, let me stop. I'm gonna ride with my man Charles. Charles has given me great advice over the course of this season, and so I think with a big time player like Destiny Brown, I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna get Alcorn to the championship. I think because I don't have enough faith in Texas Southern and Bethune can get to the semifinals, but I think if Alcorn wins that first game against A&M, you're gonna watch out because I think that's gonna be a tough one. So.
I will say this: if Alcorn makes it to the championship game, they'll beat Southern.
Ooh. I like that.
All right.
Alcorn has always been a tough matchup for Southern University.
Exactly.
And
they'll get it done this year. Yep. If they get back to the championship game, they're gonna be focused. They'll cut down over that.
Right. I'm with you, G Boom. AD, I'm gonna start with you. Who's winning the SWAC women's tournament?
No ifs.
Your championship game, who's winning it? You can save all the ifs. Just give one team that's gonna win it. Come on now, we ain't got all night.
The
Hurry up.
defending champion. I'm going with the defending champion. They're the champion until they get beat, and they're not going to get beat.
Who's the defending champ? I forgot.
Jackson State.
Oh my God. Okay, Dave.
I got Alabama A&M pulling it off.
Oh man.
Thank you, Dave.
And
I'm a government man. I'm here to help.
Doc's going with Alabama A&M as well.
You got something.
And I see who Charles is going with. All right, again, I told you the winner of the Southern Florida A&M game. That's where I'm going right there. So somehow, some way, we're just gonna wait to see what happens. So
time out, Brian. Stop.
What?
If you make me choose,
you got to pick somebody.
You got to
man.
pick a team.
Pick a team.
FAMU.
Look at this.
At least you got it on wax.
Let the bias fly.
Oh,
I could defend it, but I know you guys will say there's bias. I have a reason for it, but okay, I understand bias.
Don't worry, man.
I think you can make the argument that they can get hot in the tournament, but
they got to get past Valley.
I think they have to get on the street and get past Valley, and then I think, as I keep saying, when this happens, when the light bulb goes off, Dave, all this team has to do is figure out how to stop losing games at the end of games, and then all of a sudden you'd be like, "Damn, how did FAMU get here?" Well, hell, they stopped killing themselves. That's how.
Brian, you think the light bulb is going to go off on the biggest stage?
No,
I'm going light bulb. Drew, we've seen it happen in the tournaments before, where we've seen the light bulb go off. That's what I'm leaning on. Now, I could be totally wrong. Momentum. Dave talked about momentum could come up and we end up losing first game. But
I believe if they go to momentum, but that's a lot. That's 4 games.
This is the first ride of it too, because now you got the additional 2 teams, so it's gonna be interesting. Because
four games
one thing I've learned,
days, fellas.
One thing I've learned watching the CAA, because right now they got a 12 seed as the top seed that's in the finals right now, so it's chaos when you start adding more games. The momentum could go, so I could see it happening. I don't think A&M is gonna take it. I just
Dave. And fellas, no offense, the SWAC is not the CAA.
I know.
I know what it is.
The SWAC tends to go chalk.
We ain't need all that now, Drew.
The SWAC go. What I mean by that, the SWAC tends to go chalk.
I will say this though, y'all, it's getting late. Y'all delusional. Bring up the men. Sweet.
All right, bring up the men. All right. Okay.
You got an hour, Doc.
Let me. Yeah, exactly, Doc. You got an hour on us. We lost an hour a couple of days ago, right? All right.
And I'm still feeling it.
Here, I'm going to set this. This is how I want to set this. I'm going to frame this up, and then we'll go down these quickly matchups. I just want to give you the odds, and I'm going to. And Drew asked a question the other day, and Drew framed the question again based on upsets here. So not only are we interested in the first round matchup, but if you had to pick somebody outside of the top 4, who would it be? Now, here are the odds. Listen to the odds. These are odds from Hard Rock Bets. I'm sure they're out there in other places. The favorite right now is Southern at plus 165. Jackson State plus 375. Texas Southern plus 600. What's the statistic, Doc, that you guys talked about Texas Southern under Johnny Jones?
Ever since he's joined the conference 4 years ago, he goes to the championship game.
All right. Bethune-Cookman plus 650. Now that's the top 4 seeds, I believe, and the top 4 favorites. Then you get into Alabama State plus 650, Alcorn plus 1,200, FAMU plus 1,750. Then you get Grambling at 30-1. And then I don't even know why you would do this, but Prairie View is 200-1 and Alabama A&M is 250-1. So obviously those two are the longest odds. So let's go through the first matchups. The men play at 2:00 and at 8:30. First game is the 8-9 matchup. Grambling State, Alabama A&M. Grambling State won the previous meeting 72-61 and 67-51. Anybody see Alabama A&M winning this game?
Yep.
Nope.
All right, moving on. The 7-10, Florida A&M with the player of the year, newcomer of the year, a covering machine, by the way. Anybody who cares, FAMU is the best cover team in America, by the way, against the spread. We are statistically, we are the #1 team against the spread. You want to bet?
Y'all should have been involved in the gambling instead of us.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Wow.
FAMU beat Prairie View 78-67 back on February 10th. Anybody see Prairie View beating FAMU in the first round?
For the first half.
First half, okay.
Nah.
Sometimes, you know what? Sometimes all the team needs in the postseason is a new lease on life. If the Braves had handled, you know, if UAPB had won, then they would be in the tournament, but they didn't.
That's true.
Prairie View just got in underneath the wire. I don't know. Is Coach Dr. Cavill, is Pep Way going to play? Because he got injured against us. Is he ready? You think? Because I think that's important.
He should be ready. I think he'll be ready for that game.
Did he play the first game against FAMU?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm not worried then.
Yeah.
Not worried. All right.
I have now the question for FAMU is, can they block everything out, all the highs and Coach Carey's new contract and all the high fives and the pats on the back? It's the third season. Nobody cares what you have done. Can FAMU rise up and get back to where they were? I'm going to say yeah, because I think they just have more weaponry than Prairie View does.
Right.
But I would not be surprised if Prairie View somehow defensively slows FAMU down enough to make enough plays to pull that one out. But if I was betting, I would bet on FAMU. But Prairie View's got a new lease on life, and they may take advantage of it.
Yeah, I just don't see Prairie View with enough bench to play a full game. I think it's not because they play defensively, they play hard. But no, I just don't think they have enough right now to get it done against FAMU.
All right. Wednesday, games 3 and 4 featuring the 1 and 2 seeds. The 1 seed Southern taking on either Grambling State, who they beat both times by a score.
Just move on, Brian. Just move on. Next game, Southern.
Well, I mean,
hold on.
Yeah, exactly, Drew. I mean, it was a 7-point game. Both meetings were 7-point games. They beat Grambling, and then now they did handle Alabama A&M. But if we're saying Grambling's going, I don't know, rival game. What do you say, Charles? I mean, Charles, that's a rival game.
Who was the defending tournament champs?
Grambling.
There you go.
I'm like you, Charles. If I was Southern, I would not want to see Grambling.
That's exactly right.
Bad matchup.
Yeah.
Bad matchup.
Grambling.
Ooh, calling it. Upset. Number 1 seed out.
Yep.
We've seen it happen before in this spot, right? Just 2 years ago, right? The 8 seed knocking off the 1.
Yep.
Dave, what do you got here?
I'm picking Southern, but this is like the battle of the basketball schools now. So, yeah. But I'm picking Southern. I'm rolling with chalk on the top half of the bracket.
Drew, what about you? You sound like you ready. You got chalk. You got Southern.
I got Southern in this one in the Bayou in the A.
Bayou in the A, Doc.
I got Southern. I think it'll be close, but I think Southern will pull it out. It's the next round where Southern's gonna have some problems.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to really think. I'm gonna have to think about this one, but I'm gonna go Southern. But man, it'd blow my whole bracket up if I end up messing around and Grambling State wins that game. Jackson State, the 2 seed. Well, this is an interesting matchup because they are 2-0 against one team and 0-2 against the other. Basketball is all about matchups.
Correct.
They are 0-2 against FAMU this year, losing by 10 and 5. They are 2-0 against Prairie View, winning by 9 and 14. If we get a Jackson State FAMU game, your thoughts, Doc? What happens?
Where they're gonna be lit that night.
Yeah.
I think if they get FAMU, I think FAMU is gonna be feeling good. They're gonna play well. I have to go with FAMU over Jackson State. If it's Prairie View, Jackson State easily gets into the semis.
Charles?
Man, you got the two top scorers. Jackson State got Ruffin. They got Shannon Grant. They got scoring all over the place. I'm gonna go with Jackson. I'm gonna go with Jackson State.
Okay. Drew?
Not only am I going with FAMU, but you asked about those betting lines earlier, Brian.
Say it.
I think your best value based on the matchups
Say it.
is FAMU.
I agree.
FAMU matches up well with Jackson State, as you say. There's the styles make fights. FAMU has the advantage over them, and then that would potentially put them against a Southern or an Alcorn State in the next round.
No. It put him against potentially Bethune or Alcorn.
That's what I meant. I meant to say Bethune or Alcorn.
God, please let that happen.
Can Bethune beat a FAMU 3 times in a row?
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. That's why I say no offense, Charles, but should it play out that way with FAMU and Bethune in the next round, I think your best value is with FAMU. I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna say the rest of it for later should FAMU come out of there, but I'm gonna hold it right there.
Dave?
That last loss against Bethune was rough, but them beating Prairie View in the first round is going to help them, and I think they can be able to pull it out and beat Jackson State as well.
Yeah, good matchup. All right, then on Thursday we finally get the 4-5 and the 3-7, the 4-5 Texas Southern, who again under Johnny Jones has been to the championship game every year, taking on Alabama State. Texas Southern won the only meeting back on January 27th, 80-69 in Montgomery. What's your thoughts there, Doc?
I don't like this matchup, but it's something about the tournament season, so I'm going Texas Southern.
Charles?
Yeah, it's hard to count out Johnny Jones in the SWAC tournament. He won the SWAC tournament as an 8 seed a couple of years ago when everyone threw him off the building.
Yep.
Right.
I'm going with Texas Southern. I think Madlock and that program, they really were a surprise this year. But I think Texas Southern, the veteran, savvy SWAC tournament, I'm going with TSU.
Drew?
Past performance is indicative of future results. Texas Southern.
Well said. Dave?
Johnny Jones, the coach, right?
Huh?
Johnny Jones, the coach, right?
He's still the coach, last I heard.
Texas Southern, then. Keep it moving.
I'm right there with you. The 3 seed, Bethune-Cookman, taking on Alcorn State. I'll come to Charles last. So, Dave, you'll start this off. Alcorn won both regular season matchups, 70-61 and 78-74. Oh, can I use the old analogy? It's tough to beat someone 3 times. Go, Dave.
That's what I'm rolling with. The coach AD gonna pull it off again. I pull this off because it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. So I'll give me Bethune here.
Drew?
I may have to turn in my Rattler card on this one, but I've got Bethune winning this game. Just because I want them to be FAMU and play against FAMU. That's why I got.
You want payback. You want payback.
You want payback. You want the rematch. I know.
I want payback.
I do too. Doc, what do you see?
I got Bethune.
Charles, I'll reframe it for you. For Alcorn to win this game, what does Alcorn have to do in this game to beat Bethune-Cookman? First game after 2 days of watching everybody else play.
2 things. Number one, they got to get off to a fast start. We've lost and struggled to start fast. That's number one. In order to win this game, we got to play the way we played in the last 10 minutes at UAPB. Remember now, we had a chance to be a 7 seed. We will be playing tomorrow night. Thank you, Reggie Theus, for beating Florida A&M. And we won that UAPB game in the final 3 seconds.
Thank you,
UAPB had already known that Prairie View had lost. So the last 10 minutes, that was the tournament game, tournament environment for the Braves and for UAPB. The Braves found a way to win a good check of a game, something they hadn't done all conference. I think the Braves are ready. I think they're going to be tough. This is what Landon Bussey's been talking about. You already played in a tough tournament situation the other night against UAPB. I think the Braves are toughened up. I think the Braves will get Bethune-Cookman, although I do think Bethune will be tougher. When we played them in Daytona, they were very shorthanded. They got healthier. Thomas is really, really good, and we're going to have to find a way to slow him down. But I think we'll do that. I got Alcorn, of course.
Man,
Carl, I just want to say for the Prairie View faithful, we thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
How about the 3-6 matchups on the men and women? I think that might be either the best or the second best opening round game on both sides. The 3-6s are heck of a games.
Yep.
By the way, I'm really, really intrigued by the 3. I'm like Drew. I have to root for Bethune because I have to root for the semifinal matchup between FAMU and Bethune on the bottom half. So I've already tipped my hand in terms of who I see getting to the championship game. You don't even have to ask. Let's go bottom half and then top half. Doc, who do you have playing in the championship game on the men's side?
On the men's side, I have Texas Southern versus Bethune-Cookman. Texas Southern gets it done.
Oh, wow. David, what do you got?
I got Texas Southern and FAMU, and I think FAMU's going to do it, man. I really do.
Ooh, love you, Dave. Love you.
I think FAMU going to do it.
Well, I do have the same matchup as Dave. I will not bet against Johnny Jones until somebody else beats him. And
we'll never hear today that FAMU first 4 years in the league, they win football and men's basketball. Jeez.
I feel sorry for y'all conference if that happens, but those are the breaks sometimes.
Basketball school at that too.
They're gonna inherit all of it then.
1 year contract. He comes down and cut down the net. That would be a hell of a story.
It would, yeah, man. That's why I want to see it. Chaos supreme.
Oh man.
Win my 17-1 odds,
I've got Texas Southern over FAM though.
Oh man, curse you, Drew. But that's all right though. I mean, good odds if you play it. I'm trust me. I'm sprinkling a little on Texas Southern and FAM because that's where the value is, in my opinion. I think there's value on those two teams. I don't see any value in Southern, but it is what it is. Charles, who do you have on the top half of the bracket?
Southern University. One of the reasons why they won the regular season defensively, they were really good for most of the year. They did have some breakdowns at 99-90 game against 91-90 against Jackson State, but I think they've kind of gotten back to their defensive identity. I got Southern University, and of course I have the Braves. Landon Bussey's resume is missing one thing: SWAC tournament championship. I think the way this team is going, I got Alcorn, I got Southern, and I think the Braves will get the Jaguars in the championship.
Joe, should Alcorn not make it there, who else do you have coming out that bottom?
Can you pull that back up one more time so I can take a look at it?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. If the Braves don't get there, I really like Bethune-Cookman. I have been saying for the last several years that Reggie Theus doesn't get the credit that he deserves for whatever reason. I've had my eye on Bethune for the last several years. They upset Southern last year. If it's not Alcorn, I think Bethune-Cookman, when fully healthy, Reggie Theus, those NBA sets, he'll find a way to get his team to a championship.
I can see it. That's who I got winning.
Yeah, sorry, Edwin. No, I mean, not too many folks here believing. Been a good run, but
yeah, I will say this, and I know the concern with Southern fans. I just think in this league, with how competitive thing, I think it's really hard to do the double-doubles, particularly with a team that was solid, but they just weren't that dominant throughout in terms of the margin of victories in each game. I think it's just hard to do both the sprint, which is the season, and the mile, which is the season, and then the sprint in the tournament. A double-double these days is really hard.
And I think we can also look at from outside of Southern, and again, what I think we all should take into consideration, Southern had lost 3 games, all by 1 point. But outside of Southern, teams 2 through 7, they've been flipping and jumping around their order for like the last 5 weeks. So in essence, you got to say the top 7 teams are all legit title winners. And that's why I think there's real value on the 7 seed. I think there's value on the 4. I mean, look, the 6 seed, Charles said, could end up winning. So, I mean, there's real value in all of those teams because we've seen how the SWAC has played out this season. Unlike maybe previous years where you had a real dominant 1 and 2 team, this has been a little more even. A little more even.
Anybody can get it there, man.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep us here because I know our time is tight and I don't want to go out on jumping over to is this the women's? Yeah, the Norfolk State Invitational as it's sometimes.
We don't got to take too much time on this.
This one's easy.
Yeah. We I know you probably got the numbers up, but
but here's I'm just gonna say a couple of quick things, and then because I do think what is interesting in this women's field for the MEAC is that besides the fact that in these all opening round matchups, the higher seed won all games. So this should really go chalk if you look at the season. But what's also interesting is Norfolk State and Hampton have played in the finals each of the last 3 seasons.
Howard.
I'm sorry, Norfolk State and Howard. Thank you. Norfolk State and Howard have played in the finals each of the last 3 seasons, right? Norfolk State winning the last 2, Howard winning 3 years ago. I don't know.
Make it 4 years in a row.
So we all see 4 years in a row.
I'll be transparent.
Go ahead.
If Coppin was on the other side of the bracket, I would be having a discussion about Howard versus Coppin, and maybe Coppin could pull the upset. But because they're on the same side of the bracket as Norfolk, ain't happening, man. We about to see Norfolk Howard.
So I haven't seen a conference like this where the gap between 1 and 2 and the rest of the field is huge.
Oh yeah.
And then the gap between 1 and 2 is just as huge.
Yep.
So I see this literally going chalk. I see it the 4th year in a matchup between 1 and 2. And then I see Norfolk State running away with the championship game.
So I guess the question is, does anybody have a chance?
No.
I see. I'm going to push back on you guys. I think Howard
push
has
back
a
all
chance.
you want.
Well,
you look, man. I understand for a show you got to have the devil's advocate. This is not one of those moments.
No. They look. What I'm saying is, if I haven't seen the last 2 years, Norfolk State only beat Howard by 5 points in each of the last 2 seasons.
I think this is the best Norfolk State team I've seen the past 4 years, though.
An unbeaten regular season team. The last time that happened in the MEAC was 2014. It doesn't happen a lot. You don't normally win. I mean, this doesn't happen a lot.
Right, but Brian, you're dealing all these big statistics, and you're absolutely right. But have you seen the margin of score of Norfolk in this game?
Over 25
Usually
points.
when you talk about
they win by averaging 30 points.
A couple of close games. I tried to set this up for the Norfolk Howard game in the last thing, and they beat them like a drum. I mean, the Norfolk State, unless somebody gets hurt during the tournament, the difference between the talent in these teams is not even close.
Dr. Cavill, it's not just somebody. Diamond Johnson would have to get hurt, and then we make it interesting. Then it's interesting. But other than that, if Diamond's healthy, they're running through this, and we're gonna be having discussions.
I've been watching the MEAC all year, and I've been trying to find games. You're close. You're lucky if these games are close for the half. The closest game they had was against Coppin, and then they end up
Morgan.
They blew them out. I'm saying
Morgan.
literally that Norfolk State Howard game. I looked at it. I talked about the matchup. It was a top 5 matchup. I watched the game. I'm not just talking about records. I ain't talking about what happened the last 4 years. I'm talking about I watched the Norfolk State and Howard game. It's not even close. Did you watch any of these games, Brian?
Morgan gave them the most.
Games? Have you watched Norfolk State in any of its conferences?
I have watched. I'll admit, yes, I've watched maybe a half. I missed the second half.
Let me tell you something.
I saw the first half against the Howard game, and I missed the second half, and that's when they.
Let me tell you something, man.
That's why you're able to try to make rationale. That's why.
The closest game they've had was against Morgan State and on the road at Morgan. And that was like Diamond Johnson's worst game. But if Diamond's on, ain't nobody beating these guys, man. I expect them to win by average of 20 points throughout this tournament, and we'll be having a debate on whether or not they're going to get a 13 or a 12 seed instead of the 14 when they're slotted right now. I expect them to roll.
That's the debate.
I expect them to roll.
That's the debate.
All right.
Let's go to the man. It's more interesting there. I promise you.
Your debate might be who is the second team that's going to get a bid for the Black College Invitational Championship.
That is a fact. That's the debate that you need to have. Now we can have a show on that, but let's get to the men.
All right, here we go. The men's bracket. Interesting from the standpoint of the 1 and the 2 seed are the co-regular season champs. Both are favorites at plus 125 to win this tournament. Howard, to me, is a 4 seed, the third best odds but listen to the gap here. This is Vegas telling you something. From plus 125 to plus 1,200. Howard at plus 1,200 is the third highest, third best odds to win the tournament. I asked, in the opening round matchup, the only team or the only matchup that wasn't a sweep was the Dell State North Carolina Central. What's your thoughts, Dave, on how this MEAC men's can play out or might play out?
I think if I was betting, I would put my money on Howard to win this thing based on that odds alone.
Me too.
But I'm looking forward to watching the Dell State School Down the Road game. I think that's going to be an intriguing matchup in the first round. I don't think the rest of these matchups are going to be close in the first round. Going into the semis, oh man, I think Howard's going to get Norfolk. I really do. I think Norfolk's been kind of playing kind of lackadaisical over to close out the season, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get Howard. I think Howard's got a star, man. I hope they get to keep him and Bryce Harper. So I think Howard's going to be in the finals against South Carolina State, and I think the Bulldogs going to get their first championship in over 20 years.
Yeah. Last time
they won, I was a student at A&T.
03, 2003. The last time they won the MEAC tournament was 03.
Yeah.
That's an interesting play. Good angle. Drew, how do you see this one playing out?
See, I'm kind of with everybody else. Your best value is on Howard, and I can see Howard doing it. What has played Howard this year? Their depth due to injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at this point in time in the season, teams only going 7 deep for the most part, maybe 8 deep. So that's what Howard's used to playing with. Here's something that you may not realize. All these games, SWAC and MEAC, are on ESPN+.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that significant? I found that out last week why this is significant. A normal regular season basketball game, your media timeouts are 75 seconds, 1 minute, 15 seconds. During the tournament on ESPN+, your media timeouts are 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Why is that significant?
Yeah.
That allows your star players to stay on the court longer. You're still 30 seconds before the media timeout, maybe 30 seconds coming out the media timeouts. You can afford to play your players 36, 37 minutes. And you can do that 3 games in a row because of the television situation. That favors a team such as a Howard. So just a little food for thought out there for some of y'all who look for that little advantage to see why a team may win a game.
And Howard does play.
Drew, I'm going to give you credit now because I'm still in that. When I talk to some of my friends, I can sound so smart. And I'm going to tell you now, give you all the credit right now so I don't have to do it later. That's a hell of a stat.
That is that's some next level analysis there. Some great handicap.
And I'm gonna tell them just like you told it.
Yeah.
You know why that's important?
You know that's important. Exactly.
And honestly, if we went to this SIAC tournament last week that we were hosting, no one knew in the first game that the media timeouts were extended.
Twice as long. You just said that twice as long.
And you know, you got teams have that rhythm for their timeout. Coach talk about 15, 20 seconds, and then they come over to the huddle and they say what they gotta say. First horn go out, you break it down, and you get back on the floor. And teams started breaking down. They like, where the horn at? They looking, everybody over there looking. Referees having to shoot people back to the bench and everything. So I had the first 2 days of the tournament, I had to personally go up to every coach or their assistant coach and tell them, you do not have to rush out your timeouts. Your timeouts are 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
That's pretty good.
And it played a factor in this SIAC tournament. So I'm saying it's going to play a factor somewhere in there, because somebody who may only play 32 minutes a game can play 35, 36 minutes a game because of the extra rest.
Well, I take everything I said back about the SWAC tournament on the men's side. I take everything back. Now I got to reach over the deck. I'm just
yeah, because you only need 7 with that extra rest, maybe 8.
Next level stuff.
Now we know why Johnny Jones does so well in the tournament.
Yeah, he got all the experience.
He got that extra time.
Extra time matters. So Drew, who do you got in the championship, or who do you have winning?
Oh hell, I still got Norfolk, South Carolina State. I just threw that out there for conversation.
Oh, okay. See, look, at the end of the
but no,
day,
it would not surprise me because of that. Because I think Howard may have probably the top 7 of any of these teams. If you go 1 through 7, I think Howard does have the top 7. That's why I think Howard. It would not surprise me if Howard pulled it out because of that, and that would be the X factor in Howard pulling it out on those extended media timeouts.
All right, Doc, what do you got?
I think really the semifinals are the more interesting matchups in this tournament. Yeah. Norfolk State and Howard, because of the familiarity, they just don't like each other. They played in the championship, much like you said on the women's side. I would not be surprised if Howard upsets Norfolk State in that semifinal matchup. I think I'm going to lean towards Norfolk State, but that's the one. If I'm Norfolk State, that's the game that has me scared. This is not your traditional Norfolk Spartan on the men's side that comes with the chip on the shoulder. They've been chipped at all season long, and they actually stumbled a little bit. I thought Coach Jones has done his best coaching job this year, but he couldn't quite get them over the hump when they lost 2 out of 3. But he did do it in this final game when they were able to get a huge victory to get at least a piece of the championship and enough to get the number 1 seed. On the other side, South Carolina State and Delaware State. South Carolina State has really dominated a lot of teams in the conference quietly, particularly those teams at the top sides. The ones at the bottom side they had a little problem with. With that semifinal matchup against Delaware State, they split, and that's the one of the Bulldogs that would scare me. If they get past the Delaware State Hornets, which I will say they are, they will defeat Norfolk State for the championship, and they'll win it all. Or Howard, for that matter, if Howard somehow upsets Norfolk State. So I got South Carolina State, as was said, was early, the first time in 20 years, as Dave said. The Bulldogs are going dance.
How about you, Charles?
I got a chance to watch Norfolk State a little bit this season, and I was impressed with what I saw from them. If I'm gonna throw some money out there, I'm gonna put my money on Norfolk. I just like the way that they play. I like the pace, the tempo. I like Norfolk State. So don't follow them that much, but I did get a chance to watch them recently. I like Norfolk.
Nice. Well, for me, I told you the value for me is on Howard at plus 1,200. That's what I'm looking at. But I also think the first round matchup of North Carolina Central versus Delaware State. Give me the North Carolina Central team that beat Norfolk State earlier in the year. If that team comes to the tournament, and look, I know it's a quote-unquote down year for Central, but they still have a hell of a coach, and they do have some players. And if those players show up, look, South Carolina State is the hot team, but they've never been in this position before. So how they play against Coppin, winning that first game, really kind of validating this winning streak coming into the tournament, I think that'll be a big momentum boost. So I'm rooting for South Carolina State. Best story of March, because I think, again, you look at where this team and this program was just 2 seasons ago, one of the worst in the nation, to where they are now. Hell of a story. Hell of a story. My money is going to be behind Howard, but the story in my heart, it'll be with South Carolina State.
Brian, you better stick with your head, because the winner will come from the left side of this bracket.
Nah, I think South Carolina
right
State gonna do it.
And I'm going to tell you why the winner will come from the left side of the bracket. And I'm going back to kind of what my first analysis was: rest and recovery. While the team on the right side will have a much shorter time to rest and recover because of the 1 o'clock start for the championship game.
That's fair.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm going with the winner is going to come from the left side of the bracket.
A&T Roy said this is the best Norfolk State team.
I don't know. Maybe he's talking about the women. I don't know.
We got to be talking about the women.
He's got to be talking
about the women. I was trying to get nervous. Yeah, I was trying to get nervous. You're right. If you talk about the women, I got you 100%. Yeah. The other thing that's interesting in this tournament is whoever does not win it in terms of their potential bid to the Black College Invitational Championship. You could get you a matchup of Norfolk State and Southern, which would be fascinating to me in terms of that championship, because I've got South Carolina State coming out here, Texas Southern. So I'm interested in that. And that means for me, that would be Norfolk State getting 2 back-to-back invitational tournaments. They won the CBI last year, come in and they'll win the Black College Invitational Classic this year.
Can I ask a question, Doc?
Yep.
Does a team like a Norfolk go to the Black College Invitation, or do they go back to the CBI?
That's going to be an interesting part.
I don't think they'll go back. Usually, if a coach like that, I see them wanting to do postseason, so I think they'll do that. I don't think they'll go back to a tournament that they won. I think they'll try something different, and that's why I would say I don't see them going back to CBI.
I think it depends on the net too, because depending on how high their net is, they might get an invite to a different tournament. But I'm pretty sure if they don't win the tournament, it'll be they're
not getting an invite to the NIT, and they're not getting an invite to the CIT. Plus those other things that you got to put in, you got to pay to go in those tournaments.
Yeah, and they're paying them at the BCIC.
Is paying something to that. So I think that's another little leg to say why I would see them going to that tournament versus the other one. Because I think if you know him, he likes to play basketball, so he's going to want to do the postseason. And you like Norfolk State. I like that in terms of Texas Southern. They like putting up banners, and they're going to want to put up a different banner. They're not going to want to put up the same banner. You've seen that with the branded schools. Also, you've seen them pick a different tournament if they don't, like go to the NCAA, they'll do the NIT or whatever. They'll fight through it. But I don't see them going back to CBI. But it's just my gut in terms of what that looks like.
I'm fascinated with the women that's going to get selected, to be honest with you. I mean, although we know that Norfolk's going to run through the gauntlet on the women's side, curious to see about the debate on whether if Howard and Coppin potentially get the invite and things of that.
Yeah, I think Howard is a no-brainer. Howard, I think the second team is going to be interesting from the MEAC in terms of that. And like you said, it's probably a Coppin, but do they want to go? What does that look like? But yeah, I think the biggest question is the third team.
Yep.
The SWAC you have several options in terms of both the men's and women in terms of SWAC.
Well,
go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, I have a question for you guys. You all know more about the MEAC than I do, and I missed the conversation on the men's side. So on the SWAC, we kind of assume that if Southern doesn't win the tournament, whoever goes is going to Dayton in the play-in. There have been projections that Southern could be a 15 seed. What's the MEAC on the men's side? What's the talk in terms of if Norfolk wins? Did I hear 13, 12, 14? What's kind of the talk there?
On the women's side?
on the men's side?
On the men's side, I think it's going to end up being a 16 seed for the MEAC squad. I think Norfolk had a shot to potentially get a 15 seed, but they've had some rough losses going down the stretch because the MEAC and the net
losing the last 2 out of 3 killed them.
Yeah, the MEAC's net is pretty rough.
If they can get out of that opening round game, I think they've really done well just to get 16 seed. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're in that opening round game. They started off really solid in terms of non-conference wins. But to lose 3 conference games, 2 of the last 3, even if they go through the tournament, I don't think it's enough. To do that. Anybody else that comes out of the MEAC, they certainly, to me, are going to the opening round. I think it's worse for the SWAC. I mean, the MEAC beat up on the SWAC. That's one thing the BCIC has a chance for the SWAC to get a little revenge. The regular season, the MEAC was, the count I had was 5-1. The only win was Bethune-Cookman over South Carolina State early in the season.
It seems like a good win now in hindsight, right? Because our good South Carolina State ended up. It was a really good win.
That's for sure. But, the rest of the teams didn't fare very well at all against the MEAC. So I think the SWAC is unless they just tired of them playing in that first round game and they get a little courtesy bump because they can float them up to a 16 seed. I see them playing in that open round game.
You know, it's funny. Coach Jones discussed like the concept of whether is it better to be in a 16 seed or in the play-in game, and he was very adamant about preferring to be in the play-in game. Like if he's like, if you're not going to put me in the 15 seed,
it's not a play-in game. It's the opening round.
Opening round. Excuse me. Sorry. Because you still get the points. You still get the points. You still get the money. It's the opening round game. I apologize.
Doc, his mama named him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay.
No, it's the opening round.
It's the play-in.
No, it's the opening round.
He actually called it the opening round.
It's opening round. And you get the TV ratings by yourself.
So you can't say that his mama named it that. They named it the opening round.
Yeah, you're right. It just looks like one. But
changed his name.
He did discuss that if you're gonna give him a 16 seed, he'd rather be in the opening round game but he would rather have a 15, obviously. But if you're not gonna give him a 15, he'd rather be in the opening round game.
Yes.
Because you get the
Charles,
points.
I know you one of your big thing is to slide and get the 14th seed. I think it's going to even get tougher because they're going to expand this tournament. I know nobody wants it, but they are. I think at the very least they're going to go to 68, which means you're slotting 2 more
72
round games.
You mean 72?
That means instead of 16 seeds, you're going to get 8 16 seeds. So it becomes tougher to even get to that 15, 14 seed. Because that now means 2 of your 14 seeds will slide to 15 seeds.
Yeah.
Your 13 seeds will slide to 14 seeds. So it becomes even tougher. And if they go to 72, you can forget it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, they're at 68 now. So, I mean, 72 is going to be interesting. And, I mean, at some point, I think they're going to make it a 96 at some point.
Okay.
And eliminate one of the other tournaments.
Turn into the TBT pretty soon. Hey, real quick, Dave, I want you to just give us the Lady Aggies, North Carolina A&T, play Friday at noon as the 1 seed. They get the double bye, part of the CAA. I know your heart. I know where your heart is, and where's your head, and where would your money be as it relates to the Lady Aggies and the CAA?
Well, shout out to the Lady Aggies for pulling that off. They won the championship wire to wire. That being said, Charleston scares the bejesus out of me.
What seed are they?
They are the 2 seed, I believe.
Okay.
So we wouldn't have to see them into the finals if we play them. Drexel's interesting, but Drexel's had a little bit of a drought. But I think the Lady Aggies should be able to get to the finals. But Charleston is really good. They're rated higher in the net ranking. I think if the Lady Aggies can get to the finals and pull it off against Charleston, then I think they might get out of the playing game, because currently right now they're in the playing game against Southern. So I think if A&T can get all the way to the finals and win the championship, I think they'll end up out of, they'll probably play the 16th seed, which means they'll probably end up playing South Carolina or somebody, which is a whole different entourage to say the least.
Hey, but while you're playing, Dave, I think HBCU Nation would love to see A&T and Southern in the play-in game.
I do.
The first round. Excuse me.
The opening round game.
Opening round game. Come
on. So now, but like right now, Drexel's the 4 seed. They kind of slumped near the end of the season. But Charleston's rolling right now. Charleston is rolling. Campbell's been rolling too. But they probably got an easier path. I'm happy with where we're sitting. We don't have to run into Charleston or Campbell until until the end of the championship game. Campbell beat us. Campbell was one of the losses. Monmouth was one of the losses, and who was the third loss against? Elon. Elon was one of the losses. They treated that like the Super Bowl for them. So,
well, Dave, I do want to say congratulations to the Aggies women's basketball program. They got it done in the regular season. That's huge. Regular season championship. I don't care where you are, what you're at, you get a championship. It certainly deserves to be recognized. I do want to give a little shout out to Tennessee State men. They've been, they have to deal with it, losing their football coach. So give them a little shout out. So they had a semifinals run, and at 5 minutes they had a lead that they could not get done. 63-62, 5:37 over SIUE. SIUE ended up winning the tournament, to let you know, and they lost by 2 in that semifinal, 71-69. So heartbreaker. That was close to having another HBCU team in the tournament. It would end up. So tough one for Tennessee State Tigers. It's time for them to look at some other alternatives. OVC is not working.
Look, I gotta
give love first, then on the other side.
Yeah. I gotta give a shout out to the AD, because when they made the
interim football coach, you mean?
No. I'm talking about for A&T. I gotta give a shout out to the AD, because when they first made the decision to jump from the Big South to the CAA, the first thing he said was, I expect to be competitive in track, I expect to be competitive in women's basketball, and I expect to be competitive in baseball and volleyball. And so far, so good with regards to that. And they said championships will come in 2 to 3 years. In year 3, he's got 2 in a week. So shout out to AD Hilton with regards to that. And shout out to the teams for doing what they need to do, man. Like, we're rocking, man. We're not done yet. And hopefully we can get to the big dance as well. I'm waiting for the ladies.
I applaud.
I gave you my accolades earlier, but it's a sad day in Aggieland when they excited about women's basketball winning championships.
Oh, well, but that's the normal. Look, man. That's the norm. I've always said, when it comes to the track program in A&T, I never thought it got enough credit for what they did during the time. They were out here having Olympians, medalists, folks that were competing during that run when they were getting their growth as well. I know the football program is always supreme, but
I agree with you, no doubt. And they should have got all that. And we were on the show. We gave them love. We interviewed them. We had the coaches on, so we did our part. But anytime it gets to the point where you get excited about women's basketball and your track team championships, you got
football season coming. Football season coming. We got a coach now. We got
2025, Doc. We have to.
As the media folks, we're the only folks that do our due diligence. There's a few fans. Every other fans, they sleep. It's so bad. You think about this for we have at least Aggie fans that are still into the Black College Sports Network. You know what I'm saying? They still into the HBCU sports. We don't see Hampton fans anymore, and we don't see Tennessee State fans. We
ain't never seen Tennessee State fans outside of Brandon.
Outside of Brandon is diabolical.
I rest my case.
All right, it's time to get out of here. Look, I want to remind everybody who's still watching, or you're watching on the replay, make sure you go check out our bracket challenge. Make sure you're following us on Facebook, my BCSN1, the Black College Sports Network, on Facebook, on Twitter, on X, as they call it, on Instagram. You'll have a chance to be a part of our challenge, the MEAC men and women's bracket, the SWAC men and women's bracket. It's already up. I know Doc has already filled out his bracket. Dave, Charles, you probably need to go do that as well.
We'll do it after we get off.
The SWAC begins tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time. The MEAC begins noon on Wednesday. All the games are on ESPN Plus, except maybe the championships. But by that time, you'll know where your team is. You either be on baseball season or ready for the CBIC, or you'll be off to another sport or spring break. 1, 2, 3 spring break is coming for some teams in a couple days.
Brian and Drew, y'all owe me a drink in the media room. I want my Starrier for having me up this late.
Drew's got you. He's got you. I'll see you on Saturday.
I'm protesting your show because of how you guys greeted me on Thursday. It's Charles and Brian, but you facilitated it, Doc. So I am protesting the land. I just
he
want
won't
you
let
to
this
know
go.
I am
He won't- he
officially
won't
filing
let
my
this go.
protest for how you guys treated me after we lost.
I tried
Lady
to
Jew, just watch on Wednesday, man. Just watch on Wednesday. That's all I ask.
Championship, but then you told me to shut up. So I was like, okay.
All right, Charles. We will see you in Atlanta. Maybe I'll see you on Saturday if the Braves are
I'll
still
see you
around.
tomorrow, my brother.
Yeah, some of you guys enjoy the O&G invasion into Atlanta tomorrow evening, 5:30 and 8:30. It's coming to Atlanta. But everybody else in Atlanta going to the SWAC, enjoy. Those going to Norfolk, enjoy. Good luck to the Lady Aggies. I don't even know where to see it. Where's the CAA at? Dave?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. All right. So
Credit Union won CAA Conference Championship.
All right, let's have a great week of watching basketball, and make sure to tune in Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, all on the Black College Sports Network. We have shows for the rest of the week, and I know we'll be talking about it, all of us, and breaking down the action. So for Dave, for Charles, for Dr. Cavill, for Drew, I'm Brian Fulford. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for watching. God bless. Share the show, and enjoy your team, whoever they are. Peace out.
Travel light, everybody.
Y'all made me nervous with all these signs.
I know you ain't.